Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Sorry for the little bit of a late start. No matter how many times we do these live broadcasts, something always happens. I wouldn't say goes wrong because we always fix it, but something always happens. But yeah, we're back on it now. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Carol, your Democracy Operations and Community Officer. And this afternoon, we're focusing on all things sustainability. And we're going to try and cover every part of student life at UCL and find out what candidates plan to do in their roles if they're elected to make UCL a more sustainable place. So we're live, so please post your thoughts and comments in the chat below. We'll be meeting the sustainability officer candidates and a number of the sabbatical officer candidates too, as everyone standing for election should be thinking about how to embed sustainability into their work next year. We've recently launched a sustainability strategy, which aims to make us the most sustainable students' union in the UK. But in order to make that a reality, we need next year's officer team to drive things forward and make big changes. So let's hear from them. Yahara, Saban, and Summer and Zara are standing to be your next sustainability officer. Summer and Zara are standing together, and if elected, will take on the role as a job share. This part-time officer position represents student priorities and interests to the Students' Union relating to the environmental sustainability of the Union, UCL, and wider student life. They work with the Union Affairs Officer, they represent these priorities and interests to UCL and beyond, they chair the Student Sustainability Council, develop an effective and engaged network of student sustainability ambassadors, and contribute to the implementation of the Union Sustainability Strategy, all while doing their degree alongside this. So it's a pretty big role, and they do a lot. There's a lot of potential to do a lot of awesome work. Okay, so the candidates are going to quickly introduce themselves and say in one sentence why you should vote for them. So over to you, Yahara.
Hi, my name is Zara. I'm currently a second year studying geography and geography with quantitative methods. And I think you should vote for me because I'll make sure that we as students and as a uni use our opportunity to have a positive impact on the environment.
Thank you so much, Yahara. Next up is Shaban, sorry.
Hi everyone, this is Shaban, and I'm a first year biological sciences student. And sustainability has always been close to my heart, and so is it to UCL's. So let's together be the drive behind the positive change against the biggest threat to human existence.
Thank you so much. And next up are Summer and Zara.
Hi everyone, I'm Summer and I'm a second year geography student from the UK. You should vote for Zara and I because we will both ensure that UCL is held accountable for all its choices and that everybody learns how sustainability is much more than just recycling.
Thank you very much. And yep, Zara, do you just want to quickly introduce yourself as well?
Yes, so my name is Zara. I'm a first year reading philosophy, politics, and economics. And I believe that as a duo, Summer and I can represent both UK students, international students, as well as different years.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So before we go into the questions, I'm sorry, Yahara, but can we just come to you again? And if you can move the mic closer to your mouth because you were really quiet the first time. And yeah, so introduce yourself and in one sentence, why should people vote for you?
Hi, my name is Zara. I'm currently studying human geography and human geography with quantitative methods. And I think we as students and as a university have to use our opportunity to make a positive impact on the environment.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Again, live broadcast, anything can happen. Brilliant. So the very first question is, how will you prioritize sustainability in your role? And first up is Shaban.
I believe sustainability is something which needs to be close to every single person's heart because the statistics and the way things are going is getting deadlier every single day. And if we go with the same pace, we'll need at least resources of 3 planets to meet our current needs, right? And that is indeed alarming. So we need to make sure that our daily life at our personal level, we have some changes. We make that dramatic impact to make sure we have sustainability in our personal lives and that could be our appetite, our wardrobe, or our means of travel, everything. But we need to make sure every single of our decision is made considering sustainability.
Thank you so much, Shaban. Next up, Summer and Zara.
So, as your sustainability officers, sustainability will obviously be at the heart of everything we do. So all decisions will be made with the knowledge that our work and our aims would be to make our campus greener, both now and in the future, on a personal and group level. So everything we do would be to ensure that sustainability is at the heart of UCL.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Yahara, over to you.
Hi. So, as Summer said, as a sustainability officer, sustainability is our focus. This is what we do. And I think in that role, you have to stay on top of a lot that goes on at UCL, because UCL has quite a few sustainability projects and initiatives that it's doing. So I think one of the key things that a sustainability officer will have to focus on is keeping an overview and reporting back to you students on where we stand and what work still needs to be done.
Brilliant. And then Sarah, do you have anything Sarah, do you have anything else to add to this?
Yeah, I will just add that to prioritize our role, what really is important is to engage students and staff, and we will try and do that definitely through all societies and departments. I think that's a top priority.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. And that also follows on really nicely to my next question, which is, how will you get more students involved in sustainability initiatives across UCL? And first up with this, Summer and Zara.
So we would start by increasing awareness from the foundations that are already in place. As Johara said, there are already so many initiatives and projects across sustainability at UCL, but from my experience, not many people know about them. And so to increase engagement, all students would need to be aware of what's already happening. So we would do this through keeping Instagram live, a termly newsletter, having a blog also run by students so they can actively be involved with their life experiences and how they experience London. We would use Sustainable UCL as a massive force and work together, because that's the only way that we can make the biggest impact across all students. We would also make sure that all the information that we use is relatable and be able to break things down. So, for example, not everyone is from the UK, so recycling systems are different. Vegetarian options are different. Ingredients, policies on a lot of things. So we would ensure that people understand the UK stance and UCL specific, but we would also take in their consideration to make sure that the campus incorporates everyone and is inclusive in what we offer.
Lovely. And Sarah,
Yeah.
do you have anything to add? Yep.
Yeah, so on top of this, we would really love to implement in every society one person per committee to run sustainable events and just make sure that each society is in line with UCL's policies. And we believe that the most engagement we can give students is through our societies, and as well as encouraging all departmental events. On top of this, we would offer office hours and email accessibility, as well as maybe continue our candidate halls so that students can talk to us directly and we can have a personal relationship.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Next up is Yahara. So same question. How will you get more students involved in sustainability initiatives across UCL?
Right. Okay. So my plan is to make sustainability at UCL super intuitive. So, for example, we have, I think, around 15 green societies at UCL, and they host lots and lots of really, really cool events, protests, speakers, and I think we need to have a common platform where you can access all those events and find out more about them. And I've been working with the Environmental Collective for the past year, and I think that's, for example, a great platform for people to come and discuss their ideas and give feedback on the projects that are happening and what changes they want to see. So I think creating some sort of common platform where students can go and express their ideas, but also find out about the projects that are happening will be super duper important. And I was thinking it might be possible to have a space on the Student Union website where you could find all the events that are going on in a week, whether it's weekly Climate Action Society meetings or Green Walkers hosting an event. I think having a space for that and that's intuitive and easy to follow is going to be the key.
Thank you very much, Yahara. And just to kind of, when you're answering future questions, could you just lift your mic off of your hoodie because it's giving us a lot of feedback? But yeah, thank you. Brilliant. And same question to you, Shaban. How will you get more students involved in sustainability initiatives across UCL?
The best way to do that would be to promote the sustainable lifestyle and to make sure everyone knows what exactly do we mean by sustainability, right? How do they do sustainable works, and how do they follow sustainable tasks in every single thing they do? And we can do that by organizing more workshops and creating awareness at a level that they know what the basic issues are. If they're making a decision of their wardrobe, if they're making a decision of their appetite, it's all related to sustainability. And that's how we need to create awareness, to make sure they know that every single decision impacts the environment, and they need to keep every single thing in mind whenever they make any decision, because that's not impacting them, and no one else is going to come and do something against the changes we're having at this point. It's we who need to change and bring and be the drive behind the positive change we want.
Inspiring words. Thank you so much, Shaban. So our next question is, how will you work with both Sustainable UCL, so that's kind of the department with UCL which does all of the sustainability work over there, incredible group of people, I work with a lot of them, and the Students' Union, so that's kind of the members of staff of the Students' Union and also the kind of representatives, the SABs and the other part-time officers. So first up for this is Yahara.
Hi, so I was on the Sustainability Council this past year, which has been really, really insightful into how changes are made. And I got some insight into how Sustainable UCL works. And one of the things that I noticed is that it's a bit hard to follow what they've been up to and what progress they've made towards the 2024 sustainability goals they've set. So one of the priorities for me is to keep sustainable UCL accountable and make sure that they share what they've been up to and where they maybe need support, or maybe where they have been falling behind with students. And one way in which I'd encourage more engagement through the Student Union is by expanding the Sustainability Council and maybe opening up more positions to students there, because until 2019, students had no way of holding sustainable changes at UCL accountable. So I think that is probably the most important way in which students can make a change at UCL and have their voice heard, is by talking to Sustainable UCL. So the communication between the Student Union and Sustainable UCL has to become more constant. I think this year we had 2 meetings in total, and I would expand that to at least 4.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, Yahara. Next up is Shaban.
So I believe to understand what the actual problem is, we need to get into the touch with the people who've been doing these roles. So for that, I contacted one of the co-founder of Environmental Collective at UCL, Zara, and I had a word with her. And I also contacted other people around who've been doing these roles to figure out the very problems these people faced while doing that task. and to make sure we work on that, because identifying problem is not only the solution. We need to devise policies in a way to make sure they're addressed, and the problems people before us faced are not the problems we again facing. So make sure we have some expansion, we have more number of people involved, and we make sure every decision which we make, we consider sustainability at every point.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Shaban. And then Summer and Zara, how will you work with both Sustainable UCL and the Students' Union?
So this year I'm a Wild Bloomsbury ambassador for Sustainable UCL. So I have had first-hand experience with the challenges they face and the successes. And I know the kind of downfalls as well as everything that goes right. So I would use this knowledge and the connections that this has given me and their role across the SU, and ensure that everyone, as Shaban said, is aware that there are difficulties, but there are equally so much hard work into going to make sure that UCL is sustainable. So it would be making everything from Sustainable UCL to the SU transparent, so that students don't have to look to find the information. It is just there, and that we are aware of the issues that they want represented by both Sustainable UCL and the SU, to combine them and show a greater force to fight this massive issue. And Zara, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
And that I will support you in all of this, and definitely use all the insight knowledge that you have as a second year and as well as a perspective from a fresher that started online, and how important, clear communication is, especially for newcomers.
Brilliant. Thank you all for those really kind of insightful and powerful answers. I love talking about sustainability. It just really gives me hope. And kind of we're on the last question now, and that is very simply, what are your priorities? And so first up, let's go to Shaban.
So I've been someone who've traveled all across Pakistan, which is a developing country, and so is Thailand. And I've also have the privilege of traveling to United States and United Kingdom. So that's where I realized the difference, that we can't have a set of 17 sustainable goals, and we might expect them to be implemented at the same level at the same level for all, because all countries don't have the same budget, all countries don't have the same resources. So we need to make sure we go on grassroots levels, and we make decisions, and we encourage the decisions that are specific and that people make on their own. It's better that we don't catch and give them the fish, let them catch the fish on their own, because that is something which will help them make better policies for themselves. So my only goal is to create awareness and make people understand themselves that what the actual issue is, and they making decisions on their own rather than getting the implemented decisions and facing difficulties and problems in doing that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Shaban. Next up, Yahara.
Okay, my two main priorities are accessibility and accountability. So first of all, when UCL opens up after COVID becomes more manageable and possible to open up campus again, I want to make sure that all students have the opportunity to travel to campus actively. UCL has done some incredible work in installing lots of cycling facilities, but I also want to make sure that if you're cycling, if you're coming to university on your skateboard or on your wheelchair, that you have facilities for that as well. Then I think for international students, UCL and sustainability at UCL is still very much a maze. So one of the things that I'm hoping to do is create a more insight into how recycling works in the UK, because it is quite different to how it works in other countries, and also ensure that students are comfortable cycling on potentially the other side of the road, which was quite hard for me when I came. And in terms of accountability, I want to hold UCL accountable for its investments. UCL has invested in Amazon, Nestle, Unilever, some of the most environmentally some of the companies engaging in some of the most environmentally harmful practices. And currently UCL's stance on that is that they will divest from environmentally harmful companies unless they can persuade them to operate in a more environmentally responsible way. So my question would be, well, how are you doing that, and what impact have you had? And if you haven't had it, why aren't you divesting from them yet? I also hope that UCL becomes more placed within its location in London and in Bloomsbury. So, for example, raise the protests around HS2 that are going on at Euston, and also wider debates around the right to protest in general are all things that I hope to highlight.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Yahara. And, very current as well, given recent discussions at Westminster. And last up, over to Summer and Zara. What are your priorities?
So well said, Zara. Those two are our 5 key priorities as well. So our 5 key priorities are awareness, accessibility, accountability, and transparency. And within all these, it means that we would like everything to basically be accessible to all students and affordable. This means that we would increase awareness, as we've already said, and including engagement in all initiatives already placed, but also move where we're falling down, which is, as Johara said, accountability, and asking UCL that question, what are you doing and how can we make this better? Zara, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I would say that our main goal as a job share is to also move UCL higher in the rankings of the People and Planet League. And in order to do this, we will need to work on student and staff engagement, ethical investments, as Johara said, sustainable food, which is already present, but we want to make that even more accessible and incentivize it so that people don't even have a choice anymore, basically, on packaged food versus, fresh fruit or whatever we can implement. As well as embed sustainability in all departments and education, as well as societies.
Brilliant. So thank you so much, Yahara, Shaban, Summer and Zara, for your time today and for talking so passionately about sustainability. And we'll post a link to the Sustainability Officer election below. And if you want to ask the candidates more questions about their plans for next year, please head over to our candidates fair. And so now we'd like to welcome some of our sabbatical officer candidates, and we're going to introduce to you as many people as possible over the next 2 hours and a half, and every 30 minutes or so we'll bring in a new group of candidates on the show. So I think we might have to do some broadcast wizardry, but kind of welcome to Moise, Victoria and Meg. Oh, that was seamless. Thank you so much, Diego. So for those of you who don't know, Diego is producing the show. He's a fantastic member of Film and TV Society, but more on that later on in the show. So for those of you who don't know, please tell us kind of who you are and what you're standing for. And I'll start off with Moise.
So, hi everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my name is Moise Mbarga Vega. I'm a 4th year European Social and Political Studies student running for Union Affairs. Do I have more time? I don't know. But yeah, I'll just say one more thing. I'll just say a couple more things. So in my manifesto, I just really want to work to get campus ready to welcome you again and try to have contingency plans for every possible reopening scenario. And I want to give you back your experiences. And I also want to work on sustainability and many other things. Just go to my stall if you want to read more, basically. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Moise, doing a bit of my job for me. Thank you so much. And so next up, Victoria. So kind of tell us who you are, what you're standing for, and kind of, as Moise started off, a brief walk through your manifesto potentially.
Hi everyone, I'm Vicky and I'm currently the faculty rep for CPA from the IOE, and I'm doing a master's in education, and I'm running for a postgraduate representative position because I want to fight for students' voices to be heard.
Lovely. Very, very quick. Thank you so much, Victoria. Oh, sorry, Vicky. I will remember that. And last up is Meg. Oh, I'm sorry, Meg. We can't hear you. Will you be able to unmute or something? Okay. Again, something will always happen. And it's just how we kind of react to it is the best test. So, Meg, do you have the same settings as we recorded with the hustings? Yeah, and are you unmuted on vMix?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, there we go. We've got it. Yes, yeah. So Meg, if you can say who you are, what you're standing for, and then kind of briefly about something about your campaign manifesto, up to you.
I'm Meg. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
And I'm currently the sports officer, and I'm running for activities and engagement officer in the election. My main priorities is to make sure that next year we have the best possible student activities available to make up for what we've missed this year.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Meg. I'm glad we managed to very quickly sort out the issues there. So how this kind of next 25 minutes is going to run is I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask kind of a first question to all of the candidates, and then after they've given all of their responses, I'll then ask kind of individual questions to each candidate in turn, just so because they're all running for different positions. So it'll be a bit strange if I ask them the same question. So, except for this first one. I need to stop rambling, sorry. So the first question is, how will you prioritise sustainability in your role? And first up is Victoria.
So as a postgraduate student, I think that I would prioritize it by working together with the sustainability officers and with the departments, and make sure that departments organize competitions for students on a departmental basis with prizes to be won, and to make sure that all the students understand it. But it's mainly the working together that I would prioritize.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Vicky. Next up is Meg.
I think it's the same as what Vicky said. So I would work with the club president, captain, and what they can do and the role that they can play. And then I would link with the sustainability officers as well and the full-time staff, just to better understand what we need to be doing and how we can do that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Meg. And last up for this question is Moise.
Yeah, I think I would reiterate what Meg and Vicky have said and really try to work jointly with the sustainability officers. And that's why I've chosen to endorse Zara and Summer, who are running for sustainability officer. And I think to me, what's really important when it comes to sustainability is really access to information when we want to boost engagement. Because the more people know things, the more they will want to get involved and do something about it. And I think that's why this event today is really good, is because we are really mainstreaming sustainability and making it as an issue for everyone in every role. And I think that's, we really have to work as a whole, because obviously this is even bigger than UCL and bigger than us, and it's a systemic issue. It doesn't just happen on Gower Street. And we need to really work together on that to prioritize on. And I think it's going to be a big part of my agenda. I just, we have other, like, my priorities right now with the students, also to always mainstream that sustainability element in all the actions that I'm going to take.
Thank you so much, Moise. I love that part where you said that sustainability isn't just like climate change isn't just happening on Gower Street. And I'm like, a few people hope it, is just a small area of the world, but it's a global issue. Very unfortunately. So the first question, I'm gonna. Sorry, it's been a long day. My mind is already frazzled. Okay, so first up, I've got a question for Victoria. And that is, what is the best way to incorporate sustainability into education at UCL?
So this year, obviously, education has been mainly online, and so therefore people were living in halls or at home. So one of the things I would prioritize would be for them to get more information on how to recycle, and to make sure that UCL isn't prioritizing throwing recycling and non-recycling into the same bin bags, which has been happening in many of the halls of residences and at UCL, which is quite bad. And we should not only raise awareness to it, but stop it. And also, if it was in the education, if people were able to contribute to it, then it would help the environment as well and students. One thing I've heard from the other student officers who are running for the sustainability officer role is that they want to organize fairs at the beginning of the year where people can swap their things that they've been using. And I think it's a great idea. And I could see it make it into like a market style thing where people can bring what they bought for the year, because a lot of master's students are only here for 1 year and they are still here in September, so they could be passing these things on that have been barely used to the next generations of UCL. Same for textbooks, which would be a great invention. And also, if we arrange departmental competitions and make sure the departments are signposted to how to recycle best, and they are shown their results every month, then it would increase their conscious to recycle more. And so I would follow the reduce the juice competition styles, which runs across all UCL halls and UL halls.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Vicky. And so Meg, kind of earlier you said you kind of work with your kind of club and society presidents, but kind of how would you support sports clubs and societies to be more sustainable?
This year, myself and the sports reps, we worked on creating a sustainability campaign and we called it #BleedPurpleAndGreen. And this was just for sports, but I'd like to make sure that societies are involved in this next year. And as part of that, I want to create a little handbook on sustainability tips that our sports clubs say that they currently do and that they want to do in the future. And I would make sure that that is distributed to presidents of all clubs and societies, and they can distribute that information to their communities as they wish. So that would be the main part. And then also at the start of the year, just making sure they know when Sustainability Week is, they have an idea of past events that have been run and what they could do this year, and holding them accountable to what they say their goals are going to be. Do they actually achieve them, or are they just saying this and year on year they're not achieved? So that would be the main things.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Meg. And Moise, how will you get more students involved in sustainability initiatives across UCL?
Okay, managed to unmute myself. So what I was thinking these past days when I was kind of talking with the sustainability candidates and seeing the manifesto and kind of what they were putting out on social media is that it would really great to put the emphasis on information and have a hub for a sustainability hub within UCL, whether it's the student center or one of the cloisters. And it would be great that when students come into that hub, they can kind of access quickly and efficiently all the information about what's being done about the climate and sustainability at UCL, whether it's the sustainability team work, whether it's the sabbatical officer's work about sustainability, kind of everything really on sustainability. And then they can kind of pick and choose what do they want to kind of take part in, if they have maybe some suggestion to give, and maybe even have someone in that hub that kind of has their office hours and can kind of listen to what they think about what the program that has been just done, or things like that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Moise. So we're going back to Victoria now. And the next question is, how will you create more opportunities for postgraduate students to learn about sustainability?
So firstly, I would encourage the student officers to send out weekly newsletters on sustainability and to make sure that it's clear for even people who are not from the UK, because obviously the rules change from country to country. And also make sure that all postgraduates are aware of it. So I would put it in the newsletter as well and link it to their newsletter for people to sign up. But again, working together with the sustainability officers and the departments and making sure that the departments are including this in their introductions to the students and the induction week activities. I think that would be very important.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And back over to Meg. So what do you think are the barriers to clubs and societies being more sustainable?
Good question. I think one of the main barriers would be that they don't think it's their responsibility to be. For example, some clubs or societies might have specific sustainability officers, so other members of the clubs and societies might not actually act as sustainable as they could be because they think it's somebody else's job. So I think if we could create a community where everybody does their own bit and everybody works together, that could overcome that barrier. And I think also it can be quite hard, especially for clubs who play sports at venues that are quite far away and they need to, a lot of trains or sometimes taxis, Ubers are needed. And that isn't always the best method of transport. So if we had a closer sports venue where people can walk or cycle, that would help that.
Absolutely. Shenley's not best placed for anyone, I don't think.
Not at all.
Except for maybe, I don't know, our athletics club who can run up there as part of a warm-up, but,
Yeah.
Back on topic about sustainability. Brilliant. And now we're going back to Moise. So how will you get... there we go. So back to ask you the same question again. Not going to do that. So back to Moise. What would you change in the student union commercial outlets to make them more sustainable? So that's our bars, our cafes, our gym, our shops, both kind of on campus and online.
I think there's already a lot that's being done, even though that does sound like the lazy answer. But no, I just really want to kind of continue kind of what has been done until now, and kind of push it further. And if some program needs to end, from maybe your year to my year, if I get elected, and if I can just kind of finish what was going on, before I start something new. So really stay in the continuation and keep doing things better. I do things. So I just remember kind of arguments that were made during the last hosting for Union Affairs, and a lot have been done, especially like for classes in bars, and there are things that for safety reasons sometimes we can't change. So I think I'll just kind of see where we can cut corners and where we can be more sustainable, and kind of try to have a review made, and where we can improve, we'll improve, and what needs to stay the same will stay the same.
Thank you so much, Moise. Such a diplomatic answer there. And now we're on to the last last question for each candidate now, as we only have half an hour with each of the groupings. So Victoria, this is the last question for you. And how will you make research more sustainable?
I think I would prioritize what I've heard from the curriculum engagement learning ambassadors, which is building on other companies and getting together with others from outside to make more publishing opportunities for students and to bridge the gap between academia and the real world. And that would help people understand the sustainability issues as well. And it would also help them to get better prospects for jobs. So it would be very important for postgrads. So yeah.
Brilliant. I know it's quite a tricky question. I'm really sorry. But you answered it really well.
It's okay.
Thank you, Vicky.
It's just a time limit.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vicky. And kind of Meg, your last question is, how will you increase the amount of sustainable volunteering opportunities available to students?
One of the things that I was quite interested in doing this year as sports officer was linking clubs and societies to the student-led volunteering projects and the external volunteering projects. So it would be, again, linking with those two teams and making sure that they know what opportunities they can get involved with, what projects we already have that are linked to sustainability, and helping and supporting them with that, helping them with their applications, hosting Q&As, and really giving them the opportunity to create those themselves. And then if they have any ideas from previous years, we can help kind of find from the archives and the What's on Calendar what other people have done and how they did it. So that would be probably the best way.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Meg. And the last question for this group is over to Moise. And you've already sort of covered these, but is there anything you'd like to add on what are your sustainability priorities for next year?
So I think one thing I really want to focus on is really to look at the bigger picture, and I want to look at UCL's portfolio of investment and what investments are sustainable and which are not, and really kind of try to work through this and see if we can make changes, because I feel like some changes need to be made. I don't really know why UCL is investing in Guinness. Maybe it's for the UCL bars, but but that's not the worst. I'm just thinking about Unilever and all that's being done with kind of the damages of palm oil in Indonesia and what's happening with the orangutans. Anyway, I'm not going to go on a rant about this because it's going to be very long. But yeah, I just feel like there are a couple of really unsustainable companies that and kind of questionable also, like HS2, etc. That UCL is investing on. And I want to kind of maybe ask the senior staff management about those investments and kind of how do they justify them. So maybe second priority would be really to kind of work with the sustainability officer and to see what they want to achieve and how I can help them amplify their voice and work with them and the other SABs to make those things happen. So really work as a group to achieve those things. And yeah, I feel like that would be my main priorities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Moise. I've just been told that we're actually running a little bit ahead of our revised schedule. So I'll just kind of ask the same question to both Vicky and Meg. So what are your sustainability priorities? And let's start with Vicky.
So I have I separated it into like students and for UCL. For students, it would be raising awareness and making sure that they want to recycle. So not just understand why it's important, but also want to be part of it. Not just because it's good for the world, but it's good for them as well. And for UCL, it's transparency, accountability, like regular reports. I'm aware that they've been using companies that are not great at sustainability and that they are keen on changing that if they don't change their sustainable goals. So I think it would be just making sure that they keep to what they were promising to do. So transparency and accountability.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Vicky. And last up, Meg, what are your sustainability priorities?
One of them that I touched on earlier would be to hold the clubs and societies accountable for what they say they'll do, especially for the clubs that have pledged what they'll do in the future in the Bleed Purple and Green campaign, making sure they actually follow through with those and they actually do them. The second would be to really try and reduce the amount of kit that clubs purchase, because like year in, year out, clubs will get new committee jumpers, they'll get new playing kit, and a lot of that can just be passed down from the seniors to the new freshers. and we don't need new committee kit every single year. So making sure that clubs and societies know that, and they try their best to recycle what they do have, or donate their old equipment, old clothing to people that need it, rather than just throwing it away and buying a new set. So that's the two main.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Meg. And thanks to, again, to both Moise, Vicky and Meg for your time today. It's been kind of great to talk about sustainability. And as I said earlier, I get really hopeful. I get really excited by it because sometimes it can be a bit of a depressing topic to talk about, unfortunately. So again, thanks to all of you. And now we're going to welcome our next group of candidates. And so next up we have Oais, Yasmin and Kirat. And for those of you who kind of don't know you, can you kind of say your name, who you are, and kind of what you're standing for? And maybe let's kind of add in, why you're running. Let's just add in that question. Why not? And so we're starting off with Oais.
Hello, I have already forgotten all the questions you asked, but I'm Awais. I'm a final year undergraduate design and management student. The reason why I'm running, I think that was your final one, is that I just think I think I have a lot of experience from what me and others done that is very applicable to the directions that UCL is heading in, and I think that would be a really useful bit of expertise, and I just care a lot. There you go.
I love it. Yeah, so the questions were who you were, kind of what you study, what you're running for. I think you mentioned that. I think so. Yeah? No? Okay. Oh, would you like to say what you're running for?
I'm running for Union Affairs Officer.
There we go. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Oais. So next up is Yasmin. So introduce yourself, kind of who you are, what you're standing for, and why you're running.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Yasmin. I am the current Welfare and International Officer, and I also did an undergrad in psychology. And yeah, I'm rerunning for Welfare and Community Officer, so slight change to the job title. And I think I'm running mainly because there's still so much at UCL and at the Union that I think needs to change and things need to be worked on. And yeah, I didn't think 1 year was enough, so here I am rerunning.
A very familiar feeling. And last up we have Kirat. And so yes, if you could say kind of who you are, what you're running for, and why you're running.
Hello everybody, my name is Kirat. I'm a second year biochemistry student and I'm running for Education Officer. Main reason being, my biochemistry degree has been completely no labs for an entire year, and I am extremely worried about what that means for my degree. And I think there are a lot of things at UCL that I have good solutions for, and I want to listen to students and I want to give students a voice that they actually feel they don't have. And that's why I'm running.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining me today to talk about sustainability. So our first question is for all of you, and I'll kind of ask you kind of in turn to give your response. But then after that first question, I'll then ask kind of individual questions related to your role. So kind of the first question is, how will you prioritise sustainability in your role? And first up is Yasmin.
Oh, I guess to prioritize sustainability, you kind of need to be constantly aware of it. So I will need to embed it in everything I do, whether that is kind of when reading papers, do I print it out or do I look at it on a screen? I think it kind of needs to be something that you do in every single thing, or you take into account in every single thing that you do. So that's just one example on a more personal level. But then I guess kind of looking at the wider organization, so the Students' Union and then the university, I guess I just have to keep it in mind all the time, whether it's, going down to the cafe to get a drink, am I using a reusable cup or am I paying for another cup and then throwing it in the bin and then it going to a landfill? Like, it's just I think one of those things where it's something that you have to be constantly aware of in order to be, sustainable.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Yasmin. And Kirat, what are your thoughts on this? Kind of how will you prioritize sustainability in your role?
I think, myself included, when we think of sustainability, a lot of the time we think environmental sustainability. But actually, in fact, if you go and look at the SDGs, the third SDG is about good health and well-being. The fourth SDG is quality education. And there's a couple more that are not climate change and environmental based. And I think the first thing for me is actually raising awareness about the fact that sustainability doesn't have to be the environment, though that is extremely important. I actually think that the environmental sustainability is actually what is going to help human beings to survive as a race. Whereas the sustainability in other aspects of life was what is going to help our society survive and thrive. And for me, that's looking at it from kind of the educational point of view and think, how is our curriculum, how can we make it more sustainable? And Yasmin said a very good point, is going paperless. I mean, it's a small move, but if many people make that small move, that's a really big movement that we as UCL have made. So for me, it's raising awareness about the parts of sustainability that aren't being worked on as much, that aren't being aware of, that people aren't aware of as much, is what it is for me. And so it's looking at our curriculum, it's looking at our curriculum and thinking, how can we modify our curriculum? And I mean, COVID has taught us, and I think I said this with the other hustings, is COVID has actually highlighted a lot of cracks in our education curriculum. And the way the world has changed, like socioeconomically and politically, needs to be looked at and considered when we're in our curriculum. Okay, I'm
Brilliant.
done.
Thank you so much. A really insightful answer there. And thank you for bringing up the SDGs and how they're about sustainable development and not just about kind of how much recycling each country does. So thank you very much for that, Kira. And last up, Oais, how will you prioritise sustainability in your role?
It's a really hard question to answer in 1 minute.
Don't worry. Don't worry about the time limit. There's no time limit here.
Echoing what the other two have said, basically, because they've made fantastic points. It's kind of having this wider set of considerations in everything you do to make sure that that decision is the most thought through one. The specific way that I want to prioritize it in my role, because it is involved in a lot of like physical spaces, building how things are physically recycled, the way that the outlets function, is going to be about, for me, involving students in it the most, because I think that where the least sustainable choices have been made is one where they're kind of considering more specifically just kind of financial investment factors or efficiency at a management level. And truthfully, the biggest kind of failures in terms of like how recycling happens on campus, or financial sustainability of how well-being is considered in people's contracts and payment, is lack of consideration for the final and ultimate users. So I think the main thing for me is going to be involving students in decisions that are too strategic at the moment.
And I always say to UCL that nothing's too strategic for a student union sabbatical officer. And they sometimes hate me for saying it, but I say it all the time. Brilliant. So now we're going to go on to the next kind of section of the questions. And so, as I said earlier, I'll be asking kind of individual questions to each candidate in turn, just so we can kind of find out a bit more about kind of what your plans are for next year in terms of sustainability. So first up with Kirat. So in your opinion, what is the best way to incorporate sustainability into education at UCL? I think you covered this a little bit earlier, but take some time to kind of explore that a little bit further.
Yeah, I think going paperless is something on kind of the student side of things is something, and therefore UCL will need to make those provisions available, make sure that kind of like our library resources have become better in COVID, is working on that a little bit more. But from UCL's point of view, it's actually, possibly incorporating. So, for example, I do a 0 credit module this year, and it's basically, it doesn't count towards your degree, but you have to do it to pass your second year. And I think maybe creating sustainability modules where, you look at your coursework is not just writing an essay. Your coursework, so I'll give you an example. When I was in first year, and these strikes were happening, our chemistry professor, because chem was striking, and he was like, actually, I feel really bad, you guys are sitting at home, why don't I'm going to an organized trip to I think it was a Natural Sciences Museum, and he basically said, just rock up at 10 a.m. and there's a sheet that I'm going to give you, and we're going to go look at all these really cool chemistry things that were in the museum. And I think something like that is such a good idea, is getting students away from the very classical sitting and doing your lecture, like, going into a laboratory and doing very like systematic work, is also implementing more fresh air, more a different perspective on education, I think will really help with making your education a bit more sustainable, and that you learn more skills that you wouldn't learn normally. And so it's like having a module, like as a biochemist, I can take a module on environmental sustainability. I can take a module on how we can make education more sustainable in terms of educational resources, so going paperless. In terms of resources that are available, what can our libraries do? In terms of the library study spaces, is what can we do to make them more sustainable? Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And next up is a question for Oase. So how would you get more students involved in sustainability initiatives across UCL?
So I was trying to think of an answer of this that isn't as ruthlessly blunt, and I couldn't find it. It's essentially to make it free, or to make the cost of being sustainable not borne by students, because fundamentally then it's a choice of whether you have the money to spend to be sustainable or not. I know that there's events like that have happened, but the thing I want to do encourage is to really lower the barrier to entry. And so there's ways to connect that across. There's bike doctors that happened much more rarely last year than they should have done this year. There needs to be repair cafes linked to the Institute of Making, so that things and throwing away less, and encouraging this kind of cyclical approach to stuff, and the kind of swap shops and things that we've seen, and how some of the other people in the Sustainability House things have mentioned doing those within societies with their own resources. But essentially, I think lowering the financial barrier to entry to be sustainable, so that more people are encouraged to do it as the natural and first choice, is the main one. I'm just going to quickly tap onto my notes because I knew I had a different one. But link across things, I think that the Student Union is a fantastic place to link across from Sustainable UCL's strategy and objectives to the societies that are specifically related to sustainability and the climate, and then also to relate those to outside organizations, and to see how again can work with the commercial outlets to redistribute food with the Zero Food Waste campaign. And these kinds of connections are the ones that the union is the best place to form. So make things free, make things easier, connect people across. Those are my thoughts.
Brilliant. And I think students will be very engaging with that, because I've been a student for however many years, and when something's free, I'm always like, yeah, sure, go on then. And yeah, it just makes it easier to be more sustainable. Brilliant. And Yasmin, so the question for you is, how will you help UCL students engage with sustainability initiatives within the local community? So kind of within the welfare and community role, there's kind of the remit of how students interact with with London, their local borough. And so kind of how will you help students engage with initiatives that are potentially outside of UCL, but still within the local community?
Oh, okay. A tough question. I think incentives always work, and it's not just kind of if you take part or if you do something you get like a gift voucher or a free drink or something. But I think it's kind of feeling part of something, and when you do something you get something out of it. So I think one example to kind of compare this to is the recent UCL Move challenge. So people were doing exercise and then posting it on, I can't remember what platform, but I think things like that where you can just show people that you've been doing sustainability themed, whether it's, oh, I took a reusable cup to Costa. I don't know if they're doing that anymore because of COVID. I think they stopped at one point. But I think things like that where you feel like you are getting something out of it, whether that is like a gift card from a sustainable company, or like, local, also kind of supporting like local businesses, I think, when that kind of links the 2 points together. So I'm thinking on my feet, so I'm just kind of saying everything. But yeah, so I think kind of being involved in some sort of university-wide or, I don't know, borough-wide campaign is a good way. to get students more involved in like the wider kind of community and local sustainability, but then looking at small businesses within the community. So are you going to get your coffee from Costa, or are you going to go to a local coffee shop / bakery that's run by a family that's been living in the area for 100 years? And kind of going back to the point that Always just mentioned about sustainability being a bit expensive, I think 50p more for a coffee one day a week, if it's every day of the week, it might be a bit much for students. But, just kind of one thing a week, getting involved with doing sustainability like initiatives, giving back to the local community, I think that's a great way. Yeah, so if there's a way to kind of put this together into some sort of like UCL Move, but UCL Sustainable challenge, where you can post what you've done, and then hopefully, you can just see all the like positive energy of people being sustainable and what other people have done, and there could be a gift card as a prize towards the end. But yeah, sorry that was all over the place. I'm just trying to like think of something. Hopefully it made sense.
It did. I followed along. I like that idea. And back over to Kira. So the next question for you is, how will you, so you've already kind of touched on the ideas of having kind of sustainability modules, and kind of the question is, how we create more opportunities for students to learn about sustainability. So feel free to kind of comment more on the kind of modules ideas, or even include kind of other kind of ideas you have about creating more opportunities for students to learn and educate themselves around sustainability and what they can do.
I think the first thing maybe to state is, and I say this as a student, the easier you make something for me to do, the easier you make something for me to participate in, the more likely I am to do it. And so it's making sure that whatever opportunities you're creating, you're making them much, much easier for a student to do. And so if you're doing a sustainability module, I mean, of course, one way of making it easy is to make it compulsory. But if you're going to do a sustainability module, have it 0 credits. So the student can really just focus on enjoying themselves doing the module and learning. And I think that's the best way to learn, is when you don't have the pressure of an exam on your head. And the second thing, I just thought of this when kind of you were talking about reusable cups and things, is almost like a UCL sustainability fair, is where you have kind of an exhibition. You get in local businesses who are, maybe you get like a local, I don't know, stationery maker who makes reusable stationery and like from reusable paper. And it's making it so easy that kind of you set up a couple of the UCL buildings in such a way that when a student is, walking in to do a lecture, there's like 3 or 4 stalls that they can just quickly go to, and you have the people who've made the things, and you're really just making people aware of the things that can be possible. And then if they want to pick up like a sustainable notebook, they can do that. But for me, it's about accessibility and creating more opportunities for students. And I guess as an education officer, it would be working with other officers. And I think working with sustainability officers, working with society, because some of the UCL societies do such amazing work. And I feel like a lot of the time it's not even recognized because it's going on, but maybe they're not able to like do the outreach and raise the awareness. And I think it's really important to maybe create like a designated UCL. I know it's there, but this is another issue, is it's very difficult to find information a lot of the time because there's too much of it. So it's raising awareness, making things easier, and coming up with solutions that don't require a student taking too much of their time out. Because as soon as you make it difficult, as soon as you make people go through tons and tons of doors, you're really not helping yourself. Sorry, what was the question again, just to make sure I answered it properly?
You pretty much did. So it was, how will you create more opportunities for students to learn about sustainability? And kind of, I think you've covered that comprehensively.
Okay, good.
Brilliant. No, thank you so much. It was a brilliant answer. It was a brilliant answer. Please don't take that as anything else other than me being thank you. Fantastic. So, Oais, back to you. So the next question is, how would you change, or what would you change in the student union commercial outlets to make them more sustainable? And I think you have a bit of a kind of inside knowledge here, as you used to work in some of them.
Hopefully I'll continue to, but we'll see if they fire me just until I finish my degree. But look, a lot of people, this is just a very specific one. A lot of people get really angry at the bars for using single-use plastics and think that it's reverted to as an easy option, that they kind of just change their policy whenever what happens. The bars revert to single-use plastics as a final resort when they've run out of glasses and would otherwise need to stop service. So that's obviously a teething problem that happens when single uses are taken out of practice. It's a thing that a lot of bars are struggling with. But what needs to happen is that the union then needs to support the commercial outlets by massively increasing their capacity for glass. There needs to be an understanding of it in students to know that they can't smash glasses, take them away, that all these things ruin service and mean that you have to then resort to single uses. So that's one thing to do, and I have ideas for how to do that, but that might be too specific for this. But essentially, increase the reusable use in. And then for other commercial outlets like the cafes and for places serving food, that will be a case of increasing the amount of vegware and things like that they have. Pushing harder to have vegetarian and vegan options. Pushing the factory, its kind of ethical purchasing policies. These kinds of things are all very helpful. I've gone down a bit of a specific rabbit hole. Could I ask you to repeat the question and I could see if I can cover any other bases?
Yeah, I mean, it's still within the question. So the question is, what would you change in the commercial outlets to make them more sustainable?
So yeah, that's on the consumption side of things. I think there needs to be a review generally across the union's commercial outlets of material cycles and waste is managed. So this is something I've mentioned before, but the SU seems slightly reliant on the uni's waste management contracts, which have a lot of issues in terms of how waste is sorted, how intuitive the receptacles and the bins are, how much of that waste ends up getting recycled. I think it's been a grey area for too long, and we all know the problems with recycling and ethically recycling. I think that the union needs to take the lead on it as opposed to leaning on the uni logistics.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Oais. And now we're on to the last question for all three of these candidates, and it's actually going to be the same question to all of you. So for those who I ask kind of second and third, you've got a little bit more time to think. And the last question is, what are your sustainability priorities? And feel free to kind of comment on stuff that you've already said or kind of build on something new. But yeah, what are your sustainability priorities? And I'm going to shake up the order a little bit, and I'm going to go Yasmin first up.
All right, thank you, Carol. Okay, so I think one thing that is really important to me is looking at sustainable well-being and ensuring that the impact that we have on others doesn't cause anyone any harm. So I'm kind of thinking primarily about officers, like within the union, and then obviously their students. So I think that there's been a big conversation this year about our liberation officers and how they are supported and how sustainable is their role. Because if we have liberation officers or sabbatical officers who can do their job for maybe 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and then after that it loses its meaning and there isn't really much for them to do, and then officers are getting burnt out. I don't think that's sustainable. That's not a sustainable structure for our kind of representative nature. And I think that's one thing that we have worked on this year. So doing the officer portfolio review, having these kind of slightly altered roles and newer roles, I think that's one step in the right direction. But I definitely think we need to keep supporting and offering, basically having roles that students and people can do year after year without the role kind of losing any meaning or stressing people out as it has in the past. But I think also not just officers, but also looking at our academic reps, our student reps, our clubs and societies, the committee, any student who is taking part and being part of any union position, we need to ensure that they are kind of in an environment where they have positive impacts on each other and they aren't at harm basically for taking on that role. There have been so many people stressing over clubs, societies, students, officers who are maybe supposed to, devote 40 hours a week working on the weekends. I mean, I can't name anyone, but yeah, I think we just need to ensure that our work environment helps support students, and yeah, basically looking at well-being. But I think kind of on a more like environmental sustainability kind of thing, I think just looking at milk, and I'm talking about dairy because I don't drink dairy, but anytime I want to get oat milk or almond milk, those are the only two I drink, it's either way too expensive or they say we run out. So why don't we just have like plant-based milk as the default? Because I'm tired of having dairy milk. I think it's not sustainable, and I'm also lactose intolerant. But yeah, I would love if the default could be oat milk, so then I don't have to worry about, oh, I can't go to this cafe because they don't do alternative milk. Yeah, that was kind of got onto a bit of a rant, but I do feel very passionately about milk. And when it did sell out, at the start of the pandemic, it took me 3 weeks to find some oat milk. But yeah, I think definitely the well-being is my biggest priority. But if we could get oat milk being the default, I would love that too.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Actually, I was pretty scarred by the start of the lockdown and the kind of lack of oat milk availability. So now I always have at least six cartons in my fridge, plus then six long life cartons as well, just in case it happens again, because I'm not going without my Oatly for even a day. But thank you so much, Jasmine, for also bringing in the kind of an often unthought about part of sustainability, in that kind of it's more kind of sustainable ways of working, in the ways of like looking after ourselves and our well-being, which kind of we don't often think about when we hear sustainability. We often think about recycling and green things and stuff like that. So thank you so much, Jasmine, and also on the comment for milk, because I feel very passionately about that too. But also to say that all student union cafes, but kind of Gordon Street is the only one open at the moment. Oatly is free. And it's fantastic. So if you are around campus, if you are going to the student centre and you want like an oat latte or an oat cappuccino, go to Gordon Street Cafe and you can get your oat milk for free, and it's Oatly, which is the best. But to kind of move on from the milk grants, as we'll now affectionately call them, Kirat, what are your sustainability priorities?
I really wanted to make a comment on milk first.
Oh no, go ahead.
So I was in Kenya since March. I'm now in India, but so touch wood, there wasn't really an issue with supermarkets in Kenya, even though my family hoarded. We bought a whole new freezer just to keep food in, and we didn't need it. Yeah, we didn't need it, but there's a whole freezer. So with milk, I actually just started making my own milk. I fully made oat milk and almond milk. It's available, but we weren't going shopping, and so they would send you the wrong thing if you ordered online. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to make my own milk. But no, I 100% agree. Oat milk should be free. Almond milk should be free. Thank you, Students' Union, for making it free. Okay, so my first priority, going back to the question, is actually, there's this really big link between mental health and education. And education directly impacts mental health, and the current state of your mind will affect how you do in your education. And so for me, it's thinking, how can we make education have less of a negative impact? And I mean, mental health has become such a big thing during COVID. And so we have to actually think, like, why is it that our education system is not able to sustain in such a way that our students are not facing the kinds of issues with mental health that they have faced? And so it's thinking, what is it about the system that has meant that so many people have had a lack of motivation? I've had that. I really didn't want to look at lecture cost. And so it's pinpointing that thing. And with that, it's actually coming to ask people's opinions and say, what is it about your course that you have found extremely difficult, extremely draining, and you would want changed? And the way that you are taught. So, I mean, for example, and I'm only speaking for myself, is I actually really enjoy tutorial sessions. I love them. I've been very fortunate to have really good tutors. And I've always enjoyed my tutorial sessions. And it's because you get to talk to them, you're not sitting on a screen and like watching the professor talk. with like 100 other people. So that's number one for me, is looking at the link between mental health and education and trying to figure out where the education system falls short. The second thing for me is to make the opportunities to be sustainable a lot more accessible and put things like incentives. And actually, so I was thinking, when I was trying to buy books, I remember in first year, I tried to go and find like UCL Book Exchange, and it was really difficult. So it's almost like having an actual union-based UCL Book Exchange for departments, where like if you're a fourth year, you're leaving and you have like the 500-page chemistry book for first years lying with you, just give it to a first year, and somebody can buy that off. And the other thing, actually, I think, Yasmin, you mentioned the academic rep system and the fact that I guess people are overworked and, you're working more than you need to. And it's almost like if a student is doing a part-time role, and I say this as an international student because I think I'm only allowed to work 20 hours a week. So it's almost having a similar rule where you're making sure that your academic reps, wherever you work, and you're doing it for free, you're not doing more work than you should be doing. And it's making sure that that's almost regulated. It's almost doing that kind of timestamp as you would if you were doing a normal job, is, hey, I started doing this at, 9 a.m. and I finished at 12 or whatever it is. So that's really for me, is making the link between education and mental health a lot more clearer and understanding it. Number two would be making the opportunities to be more sustainable a lot easier and more accessible, also kind of effort-wise, but also financially. And the third thing is making sure that students who are working outside of their education and not being paid for it, you're doing the work that you can kind of safely do. And yeah, students are, healthy at UCL.
Yeah, brilliant. Very important message. A huge, as you kind of saying, a huge part of kind of mental health or education is physical health, and something I've not paid attention to too much over the last year, but that's something I recognise within myself, and I'm addressing the problem ish. But yeah, thank you so much, Kirat. And over to you, Oase. Feel free to comment or add your comment on milk, up to you. But kind of overall, what are your sustainability priorities?
Just before we move on, I think I really loved hearing your guys' points. It's wonderful hearing people's priorities for why they want to run for the roles they want to run for, and I really loved hearing that. On the milk debate, not so much to add. I'm on a restrictive diet. I can only have almond milk, so I only have almond milk. I think, making sustainable choices the natural one is always great. Nothing on the milk front. My sustainability priorities for the next year, I'm going to try and keep it really short and sweet. The first one is that I want to prioritize students as the final users in all building decisions, because UCL has been investing and is continuing to invest a total of 1.2 billion plus in its buildings and its development and its refurbishment. And truthfully, where they have failed on a sustainability front is that they failed to appreciate students as the ultimate final users in their fit out. And that's like, why is it that live energy tracking, smart heating controls, recycling, all these types of things are completely untransparent? It's because it's been viewed from a very top down and not the correct approach. And this is, I don't want to get too urban planning academia, but it's an approach that is known to cause problems in the long term. So as UCL now shifts a huge amount of finances into the second phase of UCL East and into the second stage UCL program, that needs to be an imperative, and it needs to be the natural way of going forward. They need to prioritize student interests and the way that they use those spaces. The second part is, I want it's a imperative that the Sustainable UCL campaign has of kind of closing the loop. I want all of the materials and all of the uses on campus to waste as little as possible and to benefit the local community, including students and people outside of the university, as much as possible. Donating bike parts, left years, co-ops, donating excess food, making sure recycling is on ethical contracts, all these types of things I want. It's essentially called like life cycle management of materials. That's what I'd like to push. The third one is, sorry, I'm going on. Economic
No,
the way that the union and UCL manages its finances should prioritize people at most. We shouldn't be having outsourced workers having to go into hospital because they can't access humane sick. And union to our students, who should be prioritized in the values of the SU, should be able to have supportive training, should be able to have sick pay without having the imperative of fixed hour contracts. So prioritize students in building decisions, materials review or life cycle of materials, and then the third one is financial sustainability. Those are my priorities. Sorry for taking so long.
Thank you so much, Oase. You actually led us right to time for this section. So thank you so much, Kirat, Yasmin, and Oase, for your time today. And as I keep saying, like, all of these conversations get me really excited, and I love talking about sustainability, and I love talking about sustainability with other passionate people. So this is like my little like Wednesday upper. I don't know. This is great. I'm really enjoying it, and I've got more to go. But yeah, massive thank you to all of you. Good luck with the rest of the leadership race. Again, you can vote on the leadership race from now. Well, it opened on Monday, but it's still open now, and it closes at 12 o'clock noon UK time on Friday. So if you haven't voted, please go out and vote. It's really important that kind of everyone possible votes, because the more people that vote, the more kind of the more power our subs have next year, and it's great to see everyone's really engaged. And so yeah, so let's get 3 more sabbatical offer candidates on. And next up, I would like to welcome Cara, Matthew, and Medina. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me on this sustainability hustings today. It's great to see you all. And for those of you that don't know you, I'm going to kind of ask you in turn to say kind of your name, who you are, what you're standing for, and why you're running. And so first up is Cara.
Hello, my name is Cara. I'm standing for the Union Affairs Officer position. I'm a 4th year natural scientist, and I'm running because I think for 4 years at UCL I've gained a lot of experiences, I've got a lot of skills, and I want to put them to good use, and I'm not ready to leave yet, so vote for me.
Yeah, as I said in the Union Affairs hustings, I know that feeling very well. Brilliant. And next up is Mackie.
Good evening. I'm Matthew Hancock. I'm a part-time PhD student, and I'm running for postgraduate officer. And the reason I'm running is because I want to improve the student experience for postgraduates. As the provost has pointed out in an interview, UCL haven't invested in the student experience, and I believe I can make a difference.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Matthew. And last up, Medina. So who you are, what you're studying, what you're running for, and why you're running.
Hi, I'm Medina, and I'm current intermediate officer and final year pharmacology student. And this year I'm running for welfare and community officer because I really want every student at UCL to be well represented and mental health and well-being to be a #1 priority in any decision making at UCL.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Medina. So as with the last few slots, or the last 3 groups of sabbatical officer candidates, I'll ask kind of one question to all of you, and then I'll do kind of a few questions individually to you, kind of more specific to your roles, and then we'll finish off with another kind of more general question for everyone to answer. And so the first question for everyone is, how will you prioritise sustainability in your role? And first up is Matthew.
Well, yeah, thank you. Prioritizing sustainability is obviously very, very important. The main thing we've got to do, first of all, is actually get UCL itself back on a sustainable footing, because having the students off campus is actually making the whole university unsustainable. You've got buildings that aren't being used, and to have a building that's not being used but still needs to be retained in an operational state is more expensive than not using a building at all. So that's my first priority, will be to get by July, when we take up post, get the students back, and then I'll be looking at things like energy, waste management, and then smaller things like the the ongoing issue with plastic and reusable cups. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Matthew. Next up is Medina. So how will you prioritise sustainability in your role?
First of all, I totally agree with Matthew about that. We just don't use the whole building of UCL, which is a big area, and then like how I would prioritize. First of all, I will start from myself because that's how everything starts. You're just starting from yourself. You just understand why do you need to be sustainable. Why is it like important to care about everything you do at the moment? So because I was watching this interview since the beginning, and I think everyone already said such a great ideas. I just don't want to repeat myself, but well, I will just again because I already sort the trash, sort everything I can. Like I'm trying to use the I'm trying not to use the paper for printing out, though I still have like problems with eyesight, but I understand that because when I was studying my A levels, we were giving like past papers, and then when I finished, I didn't know what to do with this. And then after I came to university, because we don't really print out everything, so I actually felt like how this can make difference, because when you take like one paper like once a day, and then there are like 365 days a week, and then that means a week a year, and that means that you use so much paper at the end of the year. So I think like starting just from the small things will make a bigger difference on a long time scale.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Medina. And last up is Cara. So how would you prioritise sustainability in your role?
As I said before in the previous hustings, I'm really sorry if I'm repeating myself to anyone that watched
Go
both.
ahead.
But I really want to highlight the numerous student societies which promote sustainability and sustainable practices. So I hope to amplify the voices of these societies. And running for Union Affairs Officer, I get the unique position of saying that I get to work directly alongside the Sustainability Officer. So using their expertise, coupled with my passion and experience in getting stuff done, then we'll be able to make substantial changes to hold both UCL and the Students' Union accountable for their actions and their promises.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cara. So now I'll ask kind of several questions to each candidate. And now we're starting about their kind of individual remits. So we're starting off with Medina. So how would you help UCL students engage with sustainability initiatives within the local community? As within the welfare and community remit is kind of looking at how students interact with kind of London or kind of the borough that they live in. And so kind of how would you help students kind of get involved with sustainability initiatives or programs that kind of aren't necessarily based at UCL?
Again, I will just say that it's important to start from yourself, like on a personal level. So I think it's just something we need to do, that students just understand why it is important to just to implement sustainability in your actions. And I think like UCL already does a lot on this. It's like it's promoting everything on the social media, in newsletters. And I just think like maybe we can just educate people more, like students more about it, and then just raising an awareness. And then it's always not just to say like save water because it's just important, but always just to provide the reasoning for why is it important to do that. Just because because I'm living in Uzbekistan and it is a very desert area, so we don't really have a lot of water here. But because I'm living in capital and there is no problems with water, that's why people don't really care about it. But then when you go like to another cities, there are definitely people struggling because they just get like water like twice a day, like at special times. And that's what I mean. Like it's basically because when people understand why it is important, then they start to care and then they start to save it. So I think like we need to do something it's actually all about being creative and just raising an awareness in a creative way so people understand why they need to be sustainable in everything, like in literally everything, like in food, also like the food waste. I think like this is the main problem in London, because I know that people, again, like there are so many people in the world who are starving, while in London people can just throw away the food when it's, I don't know, like when they just didn't even eat it until the end. And this is really bad. And I think like how we can do that is like creating a platform. I don't know if you know, like there has been an app where you could book like a slot in the evening where you could buy a leftover food, not like leftover from the table, but just leftover which is left on the shelves for very reduced price. So I think it's just more about creating this kind of opportunities in which students could engage.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Medina. And so, Cara, your first question is, how will you get more students involved in sustainability initiatives across UCL?
So I know a lot of students at UCL are concerned with sustainability and in an ideal world would choose sustainable options or make sustainable decisions every time. But I think the two biggest blocks for students are financial, because sustainability options are often more costly, and also time, because as students we have a lot on our plates, and so engaging with sustainable initiatives and promoting sustainability is sometimes put on the back burner. So to increase engagement with sustainable initiatives, I believe these two blocks have to be minimized to allow students to make sustainable decisions or partake in sustainable practices without breaking the bank and without needing to spend lots of time. So to increase the visibility of sustainability at UCL, as I know a lot of the sustainability officers said earlier that they want to make a newsletter or a bit on the website, just increasing the visibility, but also making, forget the words now, making things within the Students' Union actively sustainable so that students can just passively accept the sustainability. That's a horrible way of wording it, I'm so sorry. But just making something so they don't have to actively always go out and always be the first person to make these initiatives, that they're just there for them to passively take part in, as well as then also having the visibility of the initiatives, so that if you do have a bit more time, that you can then actively take part if they feel that they can do so.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cara. So next up, there we go. Again, long day. So next up is Matthew. So your kind of first, more specific question is, what in your opinion is the best way to incorporate sustainability into education at UCL?
Incorporate sustainability in education. Well, other than doing my own little bit with my research into oils and how we're going to lubricate electric cars, and the sustainability and damage mineral oils caused, it's difficult with postgraduates because it's a very busy year. And PhD students are very busy and they teach as well. But I think what we could do is to, like an ethics policy, we could do projects. We could have how sustainable is your project? Have you got any sustainability aims in your projects? For the postgraduates. So, I mean, that would be one way to include and to get more sustainability into projects. A lot of projects are actually sustainable or have sustainability aims within them with student projects. And I mean, I think maybe at the introductions at the beginning of the year, we could make it clear what the Students' Union's doing, what the university's doing about it. There's the extra courses online, like in InkPath for the PhD students. and we could put some in Moodle for the postgrads. How getting people to engage in them is always a bit more challenging. But people do want to be more sustainable and green. And I mean, sustainability is like engineering. It covers a lot of things nowadays, from, you know, your sustainability of your own health, through the sustainability of the university in general, as I mentioned before, and then of course to the environmental things, the you know, reducing waste and what have you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Matthew. I love the idea of having a sustainability part of, or sustainability kind of checklist with kind of student projects that are already existing. I think that's a brilliant idea. So now we're on to kind of the second round of kind of more individual questions. And so Medina, I'm kind of a bit inspired by what Yasmin kind of mentioned earlier on with kind of talking about how sustainability impacts kind of well-being and mental health. And so kind of the next question for you is, in what ways will a more sustainable approach at UCL benefit student well-being? And I know this is a bit of a kind of sudden question, but kind of, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, the first thought that came to my mind, I think when you are being sustainable and you realize that you are sustainable, it just makes you a bit happy, because you are not that useless in this world. You provide some profit to this world. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why it is important to be sustainable. Because, you know, like one person can make a huge impact to the whole situation. And then I don't know like what exactly to say about like the well-being, but I agree like with Yasmin when she said like about the milk stuff. Because I think everyone will agree, it's like making milk, just the natural milk, like oat milk, to be like a free option is a great idea, because I really hate the idea like when you need, like when you're just being charged more for just like the same milk, but just it's an alternative milk. So yeah, as I think when you save money on that as well, it also definitely helps to like for your well-being overall. And then especially in your like if you are on restriction diet, and then you don't have an option of like anything else, it's just, and then you just left with that milk in your coffee, which you can't drink. I think this is it definitely affects your well-being, because then you're gonna have problems. Yeah, what else regarding the well-being? I actually have no idea right now.
No worries.
If anyone
No
can tell
worries.
me how being sustainable can help your well-being. I'm just saying, like, literally just because useful for the world, this is already you will feel happy about.
I mean, I think kind of for some people that makes them the happiest, and I think kind of I'm not sure if kind of you need to say much more than that, because I think they're two really big things. Oh, brilliant. So I'm not sure what happened there. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Medina. So Cara, what would you change in our student union commercial outlets to make them more sustainable? And kind of you mentioned a few ideas in the union affairs hustings. If no one has, or if kind of some people haven't seen it, I wouldn't say no one, because we know that some people have seen it. I've seen the figures. So people have been watching them. But yeah, so kind of feel free to kind of quickly mention the ones that you have mentioned before, but maybe if there are any others as well.
Yeah, so a big thing I touched on in the union affairs husting was my rant about the single-use plastic cups in UCL bars. And I think we should be using we should replace them with sustainable alternatives. And I heard a previous mention, one of the other union affairs candidates said that single-use plastic cups are only used as a last resort when otherwise service would have to stop. I've worked in a bar for 6 years now, and never once have I had to revert to single-use plastic cups. So I feel that if the uni and bars are having to do that, there's something fundamentally wrong in the bar setup, whether it be the glasses need somewhere to cool, or they need better glass collecting, which would create more jobs. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I'd love to get involved and sort that out, because the single-use plastic cups in the bars really bug me. Also, I noticed in the sustainability report that came out this week from Sustainable UCL, there was a note on the lighting in UCL bars and cafes to try and mitigate the electrical costs. I think that's a fantastic idea. I'm particularly thinking about Phineas. So the new revamp in Phineas is amazing, and when everyone's allowed back on campus, 10 out of 10 would recommend. It's fixed loads of issues, but it is really bright at night time. It's used as a study space in the daytime, so you can study, which makes sense for the brightness. But at night time, when everyone's trying to chill, I think it's quite off-putting to be in that environment. It's also an accessibility issue. If it's dark out and then you're coming into this bright room, it's not great for like sensory issues. It's a whole thing. And if it's also then going to help with sustainability, fantastic. 3 in 1, easy. And the last thing is access to water, both hot and cold, across campus should be improved. And also making the existing refill stations more visible, because I know for some of them, you've got the cafe right there, and then to get to the water fountain, you've got to go past the lift, round the back, up the door, down some floors, up some floors, and then there's a water fountain. That shouldn't be the case. It should be right there, neon lights, have some water, because, yeah, it's a sustainability issue. And also, it's going to reduce queue times. You won't have to wait as long in the line for coffee for people that are just trying to get water. So there's 3 things about bars, and I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Cara. Speaking from a lot of experience, I think the main issue is that there's only one dishwasher in each of our bars, and that only has a set. And then when we had the refurb, which also kind of your comments about the refurb was the first time I've actually heard it spoken about positively, as a lot of people kind of often say that kind of the new Phineas is like if IKEA was crossed with a preschool, and then the bar happened. Yeah, so it was really great to hear that like some students enjoy the refurb.
It's nice to be clean, and I like the fact that there's sockets and the floor's less sticky, but the lights need to come down.
I think it depends when you go. I think the floor's always going to be sticky
true.
in Phineas, no matter what we do and how many times we replace it. Well, brilliant. Thank you so much, Cara. And Matthew. So you've already kind of covered bits of it a little bit earlier, but kind of can you think of any other ways that kind of how to make research at UCL more sustainable?
Research at UCL more sustainable. Yeah, you're right. It's I have covered it a little bit. How can we make the research more sustainable? Well, I mean, let's start with the fact that actually UCL does some really brilliant research. I mean, we do lead in a lot of fields, not just in the country, but worldwide. And I mean, it's tricky, and I don't want to put myself in a position so early in my political career where I'm throwing the boulders around the greenhouse, because my research, I use mineral oil, obviously, because we look at the damage in historic engines, and we're sort of looking at alternatives. So, would it be possible to do my research without using mineral oil? Probably wouldn't. I think, like all areas, we could look at energy, waste, and things like that. So if you take waste on a research project, how can you reduce that? And this could be actually what built into what you said you liked as a brilliant idea. Let's hope my PhD supervisor heard you say that, Carol. your your sustainability part of it could be incorporate waste. So how do I reduce waste? How do I reduce energy? Can I do this by, it's an electronic component. Can we do this by solar power? Can we do this by alternative power? It's not always easy to get that into a lab. We could do things like that. It's quite hard. There are a lot of sustainable projects going on. The professor at the Institute of Makings done some fascinating research on biodegradable materials that is proof that they aren't as biodegradable as we thought, and they let off VOCs, which is a similar problem I have with my oils. So there are things to do with it. I think basically you've given me a job here to conduct a review into how we could actually develop this when I get elected, Carol. So yeah, I think that's about it. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Matthew. And now we're on to the kind of last question for this round. And again, it's a question for all of you. So kind of the second and third people I come to for this, you have a little bit more time to think about it. But otherwise, I think it's pretty easy, I hope. But just to sum up kind of everything we've talked about, what are your kind of sustainability priorities for next year? And we're going to be starting off with Cara.
I'll keep this one short and sweet. So I'd like to work closely with Sustainable UCL and the Sustainability Officer to come up with practical ways that the Students' Union can help achieve their sustainability goals of becoming the most sustainable, I guess, union in the UK, but also just the most sustainable union it can be. And also, I believe in making sustainability easy and straightforward for students so that they can both passively and actively get involved no matter what they're doing or what circumstances that they are affected by, just to make sustainable decisions.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cara. So over to you, Matthew. What will you be? What will be your sustainability priorities next year? There we go.
Well, after we've got as many students as we can back on campus, of course, then I think we'll look into, as we suggested in the last question, how we can make research more sustainable and whether we can build in an actual specific sustainability, like you have your ethics thing, your ethics section on research projects and maybe postgraduate projects. And you know, the other things I've talked about, like you know, is there room for improvement on energy saving, waste? You know, can we reduce our plastic? It's never as easy as and straightforward as we think, and you know, the biodegradable plastics aren't always as good as we think or we hope. So yeah, so basically, yeah, I think we'll. I think if I'm elected, I think we'll add in the review as mentioned before.
Brilliant. I love how I'm potentially impacting the work of next year's officers. Brilliant. And last up, Medina. So what will be your sustainability priorities be next year? I probably just murdered that sentence. I'm sorry. But yeah, over to you, Medina.
So I'd say first of all, work with sustainability officers and just to see how we can improve the understanding and awareness of students why it is important to be sustainable, and to provide more opportunities and like more straightforward opportunities in which how like students can be, so maybe like providing like the checklists. What can they do to kind of care about the environment and care about themselves? So yeah, I just think it's more providing awareness and like to make students. I don't know, like how can we make students to be sustainable? It's really hard because I know like everyone knows that being sustainable is important, but then they don't know how to be sustainable, and then they don't know how it can positively impact them by doing so. So I think we just need to work on this.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Medina. And thanks to all of you. So Cara, Matthew, Medina, thank you so much for joining me today and giving up a bit of your time to talk about sustainability and kind of what your plans for next year will be. So for anybody watching, if kind of something that Cara, Matthew or Medina have said have really kind of interested you and you're thinking, I want to vote for this person, voting is still open and it closes at 12 noon on Friday, and it's all done through the Students' Union website. So please just kind of have a look there. You've probably received multiple emails from me today asking you to vote. So just click through the link and it's super easy to do so. And so a massive thank you again to Cara, Matthew and Medina for joining me today. And now we're kind of introduce a few more sabbatical officers to talk all about sustainability. So unfortunately, one of the officers have had to are not able to join us today. So we've only got two officers here for this session. And so we've got Tonya and Eamon. Thank you so much for joining me today. So if you could just tell us who you are, what you're running for, and why you're running. And let's start off with Tonya.
So hi everyone, my name is Tonya and I am a third year economics and statistics student at UCL, and I'm running to be your next Union Affairs officer. Actually the first one because the name has changed, but yeah, so it's essentially the same position as Carol is in now. And I am running because I believe that I can make a change. I have spent 3 years at UCL now, and I believe that I've gained enough experience to equip me with the necessary skills to become a good officer. And especially after this pandemic, I believe there's lots to change. We have learned a lot. And it's also time to build back the good things that we have left. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tonya. It's really strange for me kind of getting involved in all these hustings and talking to people who will be my successor. And it's very strange. And we'll find that all out on the results show on Friday from 4 o'clock. I just knew the time just now. So if people are voting, or when people do vote, and if they want to find out the results, it will be kind of on our social media accounts live from 4 o'clock on Friday. And back to topic. So Eamon, do you want to tell us, well, for those of you who don't know you anyway, your name, kind of maybe what you study, because I think you are still an interrupted student potentially, and what you're running for and why you're running.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Carol. Hi, everybody. My name's Eamon. I am your education officer at the moment. I'm rerunning to be your next education officer. As you said, I am an interrupted student, so I study geophysics. I'm from the Earth Sciences department. So sustainability is kind of my bread and butter. I wouldn't be doing my department justice if it wasn't. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Brilliant. And for those of you who might not be aware, I was also from the Earth Sciences department back in my undergraduate, and I did Earth Sciences. So less physics-based and more fossils-based, even though I avoided those modules like the plague. But yeah, so back onto topic about sustainability, and thank you both for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to our discussions. And as there's only two of you, feel free to kind of spend a little bit more time kind of going through your answers if you'd like to do that. But if not, don't worry, I'll try and think out some more questions on the spot, and we'll see how successful I am on that, if they make sense. So the first question is for both of you, and kind of I'll obviously ask you to answer in turn. And that is, how will you prioritise sustainability in your role? And first up is Eamon.
Thanks a lot, Carol. So how will I prioritise sustainability in my role? So education, the role of education officer is quite an interesting one, as it oversees a lot of areas, both within the union and within UCL. So one thing which is quite unique to the education officer and also the union affairs officer, so that this is relevant for you, Tonya, is UCL Council. This is the highest level of decision making at UCL. It's the most senior level of decision making at UCL. So there's a lot of sort of governance and policy work And UCL obviously has a tendency to make decisions based on kind of financial constraints, policy constraints, etc. And quite rarely with kind of themes like sustainability, placed at the heart of some of these decisions. So in terms of prioritizing sustainability, I think it's important that we, as members of UCL Council, kind of orient decisions around sustainability, orient decisions around the student point of view, which often intersects with this with sustainability. I think that's really important, and that's kind of the areas which will have most impact on sustainability. And we have a really good opportunity there. More related to education officer, the remit, I'd really want to work closely with libraries. I think libraries are one of the areas where there's so much potential to kind of increase the sustainability, and just in terms of their operations. And to do so, it's really important that we engage students, we engage the sustainability officer. We've seen this year how distant we are. Everything's been moved digitally. Some people have enjoyed it, some people haven't. But the fact is that paper usage is at an all-time low. There's so much potential there. So I think engaging students in these kind of conversations, and also kind of hitting it from right at the top, working with UCL Council, making sure these decisions that are being made account for sustainability.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Eamon. And Tonya, so I'll just kind of repeat the question again. So how will you prioritise sustainability in your role?
Yeah, so Eamon mentioned UCL Council, and I would definitely prioritise that as well, working with UCL senior leadership team, but I would also work in close collaboration with the newly appointed sustainability officer or officers, depending on who wins. And I would like to increase the transparency regarding sustainability at UCL, because I think there's lots going on, that UCL is doing quite a lot regarding this topic, but I don't think it's quite out there. There's only 1 week, the sustainability week, when everything is flooded with sustainability stuff, but the rest of the 51 weeks of the year is just so I would definitely try to increase awareness about that. And on an institutional level, I would encourage kind of like an end of day shutdown, meaning like on campus and buildings to like turn off the lights, like close the windows, just to make sure that we're saving as much energy as we can, because I know that this is an issue even now at COVID. I mean, I obviously don't mean to like shut down the lights in the student center that is 24/7, because obviously not that, but in buildings that are not in use. And I guess my other main point is that as much as we try to increase sustainability and promote this lifestyle on an institutional level, we cannot make a big change unless it is a thing on an individual level as well. So I would definitely try to raise awareness about this. And as I mentioned in the hustings, like on an individual level, sustainability is definitely a privilege issue. Although there are a lot of aspects to this, and I don't really want to get into it, because some people are praised for being sustainable, but they are just living in poverty. And I'm talking about, for example, in like Southeast Asia and Vietnam, where I'm from, there are lots of news coverage about like, oh, they're using like grass for straws or something. But I mean, I guess in general, that's just like poverty issue. But yeah, back on topic. So I would definitely try to encourage people to be more mindful about this in their personal lives as well, not just on campus, in their home lives, and like think about this when they're going shopping, think about this when they are buying new stuff, or preferably not new stuff. So I guess just I would like to tackle both. I would like to tackle sustainability both so I would like to tackle sustainability both on an institutional and an individual level as well. Got it.
You got there at the end. You got there. Thank you so much, Tonya, and thank you for kind of reminding everyone that kind of often in kind of Western countries, sustainability is often seen as a luxury, and kind of the people that kind of, in order to have widespread kind of sustainable practices, there has to be a kind of leveling up and a kind of support for those from kind of lower income backgrounds and kind of lower income countries to be able to kind of be as sustainable and kind of as developed. And so thank you very much, Tonya. Like, I don't think you were kind of going off on a tangent, so thank you. And so kind of now we'll start the more individual questions. And so kind of I'll ask kind of each of you two questions that kind of more closely relate to your roles, and then we'll kind of finish off this section then with a more broader question at the end to kind of sum up what we were just been talking about. So Eamon, my first question to you is, in your opinion, what is the best way to incorporate sustainability into education at UCL?
Yeah, I think there are a number of avenues which you can take to incorporate sustainability into education. So I think the first thing that comes to mind is, I mean, at the union, we've got a fantastic service called CRIS, which is a community research initiative for students. And basically, this allows students to undertake their research projects or their dissertations within the kind of wider sort of London community and in the voluntary charity sector. I think there's so much potential there to kind of widen the service, but also to kind of focus on sustainability issues. And I think in terms of engaging students in sustainability in their education, I think by doing so and allowing them to actually undertake their research projects on sustainability issues, they're not just engaging with sustainability, engaging with the idea of sustainability, they're actually contributing to it, undertaking really cutting edge research and creating really sustainable impact, real impact. So I think that's one area which I think would be a fantastic way to engage students with sustainability. And additionally, just as education officer, the education officer oversees 2,000 academic representatives thereabouts. And I think one thing that we need to push for, I think, is to embed sustainability as a theme into kind of annual quality reviews, and also embed sustainability into staff-student consultative committees, making sure that it's not just a tick box issue, making sure it's something that's discussed and it's given kind of the attention that it deserves. And so it's not only students are kind of engaged in sort of the decision making, but it really creates real impact within the departments.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Eamon. And thank you for bringing up Chris. And I just wanted to say a massive shout out to Anne, who kind of runs Chris at the union.
Yeah.
She is the most enthusiastic person I think
Amazing.
I've ever met. And kind of whenever I chat to her, I always just feel so pumped at the end of it. She's a brilliant person. She's really passionate, and kind of if you want to find out more, kind of Google it, kind of look at our website, and kind of Anne will probably be the person you're talking to, and she's always kind of up to kind of explain what it's about and kind of see kind of maybe for next year kind of the ways that kind of Chris can kind of help kind of individual students find research projects. And it's a fantastic service that we offer for students that have kind of launched last year and kind of had a stronger second year this year, and it's just been brilliant. So thank you, Eamon. And so Tonya, kind of my first question for you, and you might see a bit of a theme here with all of the union affairs officers involved in this hustings. So the first question for you is, how will you get more students involved in sustainability initiatives across UCL? And kind of feel free to comment on kind of how you will increase engagement, which can be similar to this, but can also be quite separate.
Okay, so I think overall, I would say, maybe I'm just very optimistic, but I would say that our generation is very conscious about our impact on the environment and on climate change. And I really hope that people at UCL do take this seriously, or just at least know that it's real. Yeah, so I think the biggest point here is just explaining the whys and explaining the hows, explaining how things work at UCL, how things work at the union. And in general, I think for non-UK students to explain how things work in the UK, because I know myself that is very confusing, especially the recycling. It's really truly confusing. I still don't understand everything, to be honest. Yeah, so for those who don't know, it's mixed recycling here, and I don't know why. But yeah, so I would just like to raise more awareness about how things work and spread info on the UCL and union socials, not just during the Sustainability Week, because this issue is obviously not just a 1 week issue during a year. It should be like something that's on your mind, like on the daily. And back to the point of like engaging more students or making more students want to partake in sustainable activities, so to say, I guess some sort of like, people like competition and rewards. So I was thinking maybe we could introduce some sort of like departmental competition, like for example for the NSS surveys, how I think there's a threshold that we need to achieve, and then UCL will give the departments, I think, £1,000 to spend on their final year students. I was thinking of some similar initiative with like regards to sustainability, as I think that would really give more ambition to people and to departments as well. And I really like the idea that Eamon mentioned as well to introduce sustainability as one of the main points in like the annual reviews. And yeah, as I think I'm just going to echo myself again, but I just want to increase sustainability lifestyle, like the awareness about it on the individual level, because I think that's where the biggest change is. So.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tonya. And so, Eamon, my kind of next question for you is, how will you let me start that again. How will you create more opportunities for students to learn about sustainability? So we've heard a lot about kind of how you will hold UCL accountable to kind of being more sustainable, but how will you kind of create more opportunities for students to learn about sustainability?
Definitely. So one thing that I've wanted to do for quite a while, and COVID kind of hasn't allowed it, is extracurricular credit-bearing or non-credit-bearing modules. These are becoming quite popular across UCL and also across other universities. And I think it's something we should really kind of take forward in the next academic year, especially considering that we're graduating into a COVID economy. I think students will actually really take this opportunity to do sort of skill-based workshops or modules, be that in coding or languages, or in this case, sustainability and other sustainability issues. So that's something I really want to pursue. There are bits of, there are kind of these opportunities here and there within UCL, but nothing kind of overarching. And that's something I really want to work on, to give students those opportunities to study sustainability, because it is a very interesting issue. It's a very kind of nuanced issue. And I think it's something that we should all have some sort of literacy about going forward, into our careers. And yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I think Chris is a fantastic opportunity. There's a lot of potential to kind of widen the impacts that Chris does, make students more aware of that service, and also kind of to focus in on some sort of sustainability issues within Chris. So yeah, that's sort of how it sort of allows students to actually learn about sustainability as opposed to just engage with it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Eamon, because, UCL is a place of learning, and it's so important that we kind of maintain that in everything we do. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Eamon. And so, Tonya, my next question for you is, what would you change in the Students' Union commercial outlets to make them more sustainable? And I think you've got a bit of inside knowledge here, because you used to work in some of them, didn't you?
Well, technically, I'm still employed. I'm on furlough.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, no, I wasn't implying that anybody had been fired. Please, no.
No, I mean, I'm one of the lucky ones who's on furlough. And yeah, so I have, I don't even know how much in total, but probably at least 6 months experience in Gordon's Cafe. I can't really keep track with COVID and everything. But I think not many people know, but the cafes are really on a good track in terms of sustainability. They like even the paper cups we use are like, lots of these things and are vegware. And we also have this, I wouldn't call it a scheme, but basically if you bring your own cup, it's the drinks are, I think, 15p cheaper. Maybe that has changed since then, but I'm pretty much, it is cheaper. Although during COVID we have stopped this scheme because obviously it's not quite safe to just deal with each other's cups and things like that. So in hopes that things go back to normal soon, I would probably introduce that back again. And I guess one thing that lots of students have been talking about is stopping this, the sale of water bottles, the small ones, like the ones in plastic, you know what I'm talking about, yeah. And instead of that, we could either introduce like bigger portions of them, or just, I think what would be better is just put a water fountain in like all cafes, or like in the general area of cafes, because like there are already lots of people coming and queuing in the cafes just for us to fill up their water bottle. I think this would solve lots of a lot of those issues. And I know there are so many new water fountains installed, but I think we still need more. And I'm pretty sure they are only on like the main building area, so we could just like spread it out a bit more. And what else was I saying? Yeah, so you're saying commercial outlets, yeah. So food waste, I think, is also a big concern of people. Although, I mean, I think in my opinion, Gordon's was doing really well on food management. I personally never had to like throw out food. And you know, people are saying like we should give away food that is, you know, like expired by the end of the day, but I think there are certain like laws and regulations about that, so I would definitely need to look into that a bit more. But I think just increase awareness across cafes and bars to make sure that you are being as well, I don't even know what the word is, just being very careful about like expiry dates and things like that. Because if you pay attention, you can truly manage it without lots of food waste. And I guess if you've watched the officer, like the Union Affairs officer Hustings video, I think everyone mentioned reusable cups at least like 5 times. I'm gonna be the 6th one, I guess. So yeah, it's just a good thing, and everyone likes to have some sort of like SU merch or whatever you would call it. So I would just you know, introduce that back again. But obviously, this is all dependent on COVID and this whole situation. So yeah, I guess that's it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tonya. And now it's going to be a question kind of for both of you again, but kind of just really summarize kind of what we've just discussed and kind of the points that you've kind of brought up in this section. And so kind of the final question is, what are your sustainability priorities? So feel free to kind of reflect on stuff you've just said, or if you're kind of thinking about anything else, kind of feel free to add that in as well. And to kind of mix things up a bit, I'll start with Tonya.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just try to add some more things to what just I mentioned before. In terms of like commercial outlets, I would try to introduce even more veg or vegan options. I'm like definitely not pushing it on anyone, but I think that having more options would encourage more people to just try plant-based eating. I would definitely encourage societies and clubs and even departments for them to use reusable dishware throughout their events and socials and everything. I think the other main thing that people think about when they think of sustainability is recycling. I think everyone has seen at least one trash can at UCL where it's supposed to be like different ones, but if you look into it, it's just one bin liner inside. I guess I would try to make it work, because recycling is one of the main things that people can do on an individual level that doesn't really take much effort and money actually. So yeah, that's one thing. And I think something that I forgot to mention in one of my previous points is just responsible investments from UCL. So I know UCL has this policy, I think since 2018, this socially responsible investment policy. But I would definitely like a review of that, because I don't think many students are actually aware of what is going on. And yeah, I think what you can find on the website is kind of vague. It has some sentences where it's like, if a company has this and that requirement, then they're okay, but like what those requirements actually are, I think that's what most students are interested in, and that's the general I blanked out, sorry. So that's what I would try to work on. Yeah, sorry.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Tonya. Yeah, I was sitting on UCL Council at the time that the socially, ethically and socially responsible investment policy was agreed, and I think the wording is they will not invest in a company or organisation that derives more than, I think, 10% of its profits from the extraction or use of fossil fuels, which obviously kind of leaves the door open for so many other kind of companies which are really harmful for the environment, but kind of not for kind of fossil fuel reasons. So kind of thank you for bringing that up, Tonya. It's a kind of a really valid point to bring, or to raise, not to bring. God, almost there. So Eamon, over to you for your answer. So what are your sustainability priorities for next year?
Yeah, so one area which I think is really quite easy for us to do, really something actionable, and I don't think it takes too much effort for us to do, is reviewing our policy on printing and on binding dissertations, and also on other pieces of work. This year we've been so distant that we've kind of been forced to kind of take on sort of digital to kind of help us, do our daily lives. But I think going forward, this is something that we could really take forward with us. Like I said, paper usage at UCL is at an all-time low. So I really, we've also seen students using scan and send services instead of printing material. This is something I really want to take forward. We've made some real strides this year in terms of sustainability and just the student experience overall. And it's important that we don't let these things go. So I really want to just completely review the policy for having dissertations printed. And if, at the very least, I think we should push for free dissertation printing and binding, much like other universities. And that way UCL can partner with sustainable printworks and bookbinders in the local area, which use recyclable paper only, for example. I think it's something we can really easily do. Other universities have done it, so why can't UCL? And then second, a little bit less actionable and a little bit kind of broader, but UCL East. I think it's a huge sort of multi-billion-pound project that's going on at the moment, and there's so many areas where sustainability can kind of be embedded. Whether it's sort of looking at study spaces. I mean, I was in a meeting thinking about what furniture we're going to use in UCL East. I never expected that from my role. But looking at study spaces or procurement supply chains for UCL East, looking at the different facilities and the commercial outlets, whether it's even looking at kind of the curriculums, what's being taught at UCL East and the pedagogy. How is this being offered? Is this kind of being oriented around sustainability? There's so much potential there. I think we're starting with a completely fresh, clean slate at UCL East. We have a fantastic chance really to just embed sustainability into this new campus. So that's going to be one of my huge priorities going forward.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Eamon. I think last year I was in a UCL East meeting, and no lie, the people in the meeting spent an hour deciding whether they wanted like writing and logos on windows. And there was just an hour-long conversation about whether they should do that or not. So I'm not surprised that you've been involved in kind of discussions around furniture already. They're thinking about kind of every tiny detail and paying a lot of attention on every single one of them, because I think the first building opens in 2022, so we're still kind of a few years away. Actually, no, we're not. It's next year. Oh God, that's really scary.
I was going to say.
Okay, no wonder they're thinking about all the details, because it's really not that far. Wow, okay, that was a bit of a wake-up call for me. Brilliant. Okay, back on track. Thank you so much, Tonya and Eamon, for spending a bit of your time today to talk to me about sustainability. It's really, really awesome and kind of heartening for me to have these kind of conversations with you, as it kind of takes sometimes kind of a bit of a depressing topic and gives it a nice hopeful spin on it. So thank you so much. Again, a little reminder, if any of you watching kind of were listening to both Tonya and Eamon and thought like, oh yeah, I want to vote for this person, their plans are great, then please, like, voting is still open and it closes at noon on Friday, kind of 12 p.m. or midday UK time. And you can do that all through our website. Kind of, you go to our main page and the first link is there. You just click start voting and it takes you there, it whisks you away to the voting platform. And so, yeah, massive thank you again to Tonya and Eamon. Thank you so much. And now we're on to our last section of the day and our last group of sabbatical officer representatives. So welcome, Osman, Rihanna and Gigi. Lovely to see you all again after kind of the hustings last week. And so for those of you that don't know, if you could kind of go around and say kind of what your name is, kind of what you're studying, what you're standing for, and why you're running. So if we could start off with Osman.
Hi, Carol. I'm happy to be here. My name's Osman. I'm a third year MSci chemistry student, and I'm running to be your Union Affairs officer. Like students, it's felt like students' concerns haven't been heard over the last year, which is one of the main reasons for why I'm running, because there's lots of things on my manifesto which I would like to bring up and raise to UCL, so that we can actually improve student experiences throughout next year. So check out my manifesto and look at my candidate stall as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Osman. Next up, Rihanna. So just to recap, it's kind of who you are, what you're studying, what you're standing for, and why you're standing.
Well, hi, I am Rihanna, and I am also a third year chemist, but I am standing for the Activities and Engagement Officer. And it's something that I'm very passionate about because, as the president of a society this year, I have had very little communication and not being able to get the right support. And that is something that I would like to not see going forward. And I'd like to provide a lot more support to the societies next year so that we can gain a bit of that student experience back for next year's students.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Rihanna. And last up, Gigi. So kind of who you are, what you're studying, what you're running for, and why you're running.
Okay, hi, I'm Gigi. I'm a first year master's student. I'm studying engineering and education with UCL's IOE. And I'm running for education staff. And educating I'm really not only academic, but so, you know, obviously with the how it's being approached at UCL. And I've found that a lot of the stuff I'm planning on working on my education are some of the same points I want to address at UCL, like the disparity of women in STEM, marginalized people in you know, the unfairness of their access to scholarships, things like that. And sustainability is just one of those topics that I think everyone, regardless of what they're running for, can kind of have input in.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. You actually stole a little sentence from me from what I was going to say at the end. So I'll just make sure to repeat it and say, as Gigi said earlier. But yeah, brilliant. Thank you to all of you for introducing yourself. And I'll just quickly go through kind of the format of this section. So I have kind of a more general question that I'm going to ask all of you. And kind of if you've been watching along, you'll probably guess what it is. And then I'll ask kind of one or two questions to each of you kind of individually about your role and about kind of specifically kind of how sustainability intersects with your role. And then we'll kind of finish up and sum up the section with another general question. So you kind of sum up everything you've kind of brought up or talked about with previous questions. So we're going to start off, as I said, with a more general question. So I'm going to ask it to all of you. And so that question is, how will you prioritize sustainability in your role? And we're going to start off with Rihanna.
Remember to unmute myself in this one. I think that one of the most important sustainability things and issues that we face in societies is that a lot of sports clubs have a lot of kit that needs ordering, and it happens year after year. So I think that maybe making the switch to a distributor that uses recycled materials instead of just making them from scratch would be a big saving on the environment. But not only that, having a policy of graduating students, or maybe students who are not going to plan on being in the club next year, passing down their kit to the next people who are coming through the next year of students so that they don't have to buy new. And then not only is that environmentally sustainable, it's also financially sustainable and accessible to a lot of people who would otherwise struggle, because that is a big expense in the year, is sports clubs and all the paraphernalia that goes with it. And I think that maybe even just the union having a supply of generic sports kits that can be loaned out to the students would be a big saving, and then it's just being reused for a couple of years before it might need replacing, but it's still more sustainable than having to get a new one every year. So I think that that would be the most important thing for the society's role.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Rihanna. And so same question to Gigi. So how would you prioritize sustainability in your role?
I think because I am running for education, it is a bit because UCL is an educational institute. So I think there are surprisingly numerous ways that I can try to make UCL more sustainable. I mentioned in my manifesto actually that I'm thinking of implementing coffee and tea carts in the libraries, so that you know, if you have a cup of coffee or tea you bring in, which like most students do, and you know, run out, instead of going to get another cup from Costa or Starbucks, or even at UCL itself, you could just go to the tea cart and, you know, refill and a cheaper cost. So like I think like some like just like small things like that, and also I mentioned in my manifesto having the option of having your student ID on your phones. So not only to reduce plastic, but to also kind of avoid being kicked out of the library because you forgot your ID, and as well as just things with the UCL store. Instead of selling, notebooks that don't really have recycled paper, implementing recycled paper. I know plenty of small businesses around Bloomsbury that are, that are so enthusiastic about selling bamboo pens, sustainable paper, sustainable notebooks. So I think maybe collaborating with those small businesses not only helps the small businesses, but UCL itself be more sustainable and also less capitalist.
Yes, we definitely, well, I can't say much for the union, but I definitely support that sentiment, Gigi. Thank you so much. And then over to you, Osman. So I'm just going to repeat the question for you. What would be, it's been a really long day. Okay, come on, Carol, come on. So what will be your, no, it's not, oh my God, right. So how will you prioritize sustainability in your role? There we go. I got it.
I have a bit of a weird answer to this, so you're gonna have to let me explain it a little bit.
Go ahead.
But I would actually make it rely less on me. Um, as the Union Affairs Officer, it's a massive role, and if sustainability was only contained within this one role, then what you would have is year on year, you would have changes on the sustainability strategies, and you might have someone that's really passionate one year and another year not really pushing it as much. And so what's important for me is that I'm setting up the infrastructure so that the work can continue in the long term, right? Because sustainability is a very, very long-term solution that needs to be there to solve it. It's not something that you can kind of solve overnight or with like a stroke of a pen, suddenly, we've reversed climate change. It takes a lot of hard work to kind of make this actually impactful, right? And so the way I see it is that I'll try and pull in as many people from across the union alongside me on these sustainability issues, right? So that would include working with the sustainability officer. I would want to kind of strengthen the Student Sustainability Council as well, because that's something where we can kind of empower students to get involved with decision making and sustainability at UCL, and they can provide their feedback and their guidance. So I would like to kind of just involve so many different stakeholders in these decisions so that the accountability is much greater and so that the impact can be much more long term and much more real as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Osman. We think we're on the same page of the book when it comes to kind of sharing sustainability responsibilities. I love that. Brilliant. So now I'm going to be asking kind of a few more individual questions to each of the candidates, just to really kind of explore what their plans are for next year. There we go. So first up, I'm going to ask Rihanna. What do you think the barriers are to clubs and societies to being more sustainable? Sorry, that wasn't really grammatically correct. So let me just try that again. So what do you think the barriers are for clubs and societies to being more sustainable? Okay, I think that was slightly better, maybe not completely perfect, but I think you got the gist. So over to you, Rihanna, before I repeat that again.
I think one of the big issues that we have is convenience, because I've seen it proposed that the union would have like a stock of plates and cutlery and glasses that we could all borrow to save us from buying plastics and paper just that gets thrown away after every week. And I think that's a really great idea, but that access to that is something that would need to be improved. But having a centralized stock of reusable ceramic, glass, plates, cups would be a really great thing, because I find that we buy a pack of paper plates every week because there's nowhere to take everything home on the bus going 45 minutes at 7 o'clock at night sort of thing. So I think that would be a really great introduction into societies and clubs. And I think another thing that would be really useful for them would be an increased amount of water fountains around in the areas that the activities take place. And because one of my goals would be to really reduce the amount of single-use plastic waste on campus, and plastic bottles contribute a lot to that. So having water fountains accessible and convenient would be a great thing, because one of the other barriers is just time, convenience, money, and this kind of solves all the three things of those all in one.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Rihanna. I love solutions that solve more than one problem. I love them. Fantastic. So my next question is to Osman, and and it's kind of the question I've asked all of the Union Affairs Officer candidates first, so you're probably expecting it. And that is, how will you get more students involved in sustainability initiatives across UCL? And kind of feel free to comment on kind of how you would increase engagement with students with sustainability, which can be similar, but can also be kind of a little bit different to just kind of involvement in initiatives.
Yeah, thank you, Carol. That's a really good question. I think one good thing is that students already are concerned about the environment. I mean, climate change itself has done a lot of good PR in terms of raising the awareness to its own issue. And so I think a lot of us, young people and a lot of students, we have a lot of energy towards some of these causes, and especially towards sustainability. But it's kind of now finding a way to channel that. And so the Students' Union should allow for students to kind of have those opportunities where they can enact some of those passions that they have. So actually finding spaces for them so that they can actually affect change. And so as I kind of mentioned before, I talked about the Student Sustainability Council, right? That's one way in which students can actually change the agenda at UCL, and actually create change. And I think that's one good aspect to it, where we're increasing the opportunities for students to kind of get involved. Another thing is just to make it more sustainable, make it more affordable as well to be sustainable. And I think this is something that's personal to me, because I have family members who, because of allergies and things, they have to kind of take up the more expensive gluten-free soya milk kind of all of these options, right? And I've seen firsthand the price jumps between what a regular carton of milk versus something like soya milk or bread or gluten bread. So it's about kind of making it more affordable for students, so that people from kind of lower socioeconomic backgrounds aren't allowed to get involved in these.
Oh, I think we've lost. Oh, there we go. We've got you again. Sorry, Osman, you just dropped out. So if you could say maybe kind of. Pardon? So you were just talking about kind of affordability. You were just talking about affordability and kind of making sure that kind of sustainability didn't, like the price of being more sustainable didn't come as a detriment to students.
Yeah, sorry. So, like I said, I do have a personal connection to this, and I've seen firsthand the differences, right, in terms of affordability. And so that would be an important factor to kind of help, because students of all types make up UCL. And so if we really want to help students in general become more sustainable and get involved in these things, we just need to make it more accessible for them. And so I think, I think that's kind of some of what I've said. Sorry.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Osman. And yeah, I'm an overshare. I might as well share this. I'm on quite a restrictive diet, and the price difference between a normal loaf of bread and a gluten-free kind of loaf of bread is ridiculous. It's actually ridiculous. But I'll save that rant for another time, and when I'm not trying to ask people about sustainability. So, Gigi, Now we're going over to you, and kind of my question for you is, what is the best way to incorporate sustainability into education here at UCL?
Um, yeah, I think that is a question that I've been thinking about myself. I think at least this year, because we've kind of been forced to, we've been sustainable with online learning, but obviously, hopefully, that's gonna change this year. And we're gonna go back to class and we're gonna be buying notebooks, printing papers. So, trying to sort of have that conversation, I think, is really important. Um, and I think as of now, in terms of like individual students, I think it'll be more difficult because as we're getting into the groove of things, I think everyone's just excited to go back to school shopping again. But in terms of a institutional wide kind of change, I think a big way we can be more sustainable is encouraging buying textbooks secondhand and renting textbooks and finding ways that the library can be more responsible for having multiple copies of textbooks rather than just one, so that you don't have to go and buy a 300-pound textbook that you're never going to read again after graduation. Let's be honest. But things like that, that UCL itself and the provost himself can have hand in, is, I think, the best or the way to approach it. And just having things like maybe if we have the budget for it, having iPads instead of promoting like notebook usage. Just having iPads, you can write with the Apple Pencil, take notes, send it off to your email. Um, just have that in the libraries. I think things like that that the university itself can do with its hopefully massive budget. That's going to make the most change. And obviously, as we, do kind of um, grow to be more sustainable, I think during lockdown, everyone's kind of faced the issue of sustainability in one way or the other. I started knitting my own tea towels. So, yeah, things like that. I think having having UCL be more responsible and UCL kind of guiding the students is going to be my approach, as opposed to kind of telling the students what to do, because I think without the proper institutional encouragement, it's going to be really difficult to have massive university be sustainable.
Thank you so much, Gigi. Brilliant. So now we're going to go back to Rihanna for kind of the next kind of more individual question. And so kind of Rihanna, so before we were kind of touching on the kind of barriers to club and societies being more sustainable, and kind of earlier you also kind of commented on kind of ways that sports clubs could be more sustainable. But can you think of kind of can you think of the ways that you will be able to support and encourage societies to be more sustainable?
Yes, I've thought about this. And in the activities and engagement hustings, I touched on the idea of having an accessibility review that societies have to do over the summer before you're allowed to start up your events in September. And I think that doing a sustainability review would also be a really good idea to bring it to the forefront of people's minds and make people really aware of what they might be doing that is currently unsustainable and the differences that they can make. And also my idea of having the centralized hub full of resources and having all these sustainability resources there, somebody that can help you fix any issues that you might be having, give you more ideas on what you can do. I think that would be a really good resource in being able to help yourself to be a bit more sustainable, and having potentially a sustainability officer for societies just to keep on the ball with that and keep making sure that they're all aware of what's going on and what we can all be doing to be more sustainable as a society and as individuals.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Rihanna. And so, Osman, kind of my next question for you is, what would you change in the student union commercial outlets to make them more sustainable?
I think what's been mentioned a lot, and again, I'll, it's a common answer because it shows that it does need to be done, right? And so just having plastic kind of reusable cups would be massive towards actually being a small step for students to start to implement sustainability within their lives. As much as we talk about the big decisions when it comes to increasing sustainability and trying to make UCL do this or that and things like that, students personally taking themselves to account um, and actually championing these causes in their personal lives is really massive to the whole movement. And so something as simple as reusable cups would allow students to uh, take the issue more seriously, but then it will be their stepping point into going further on and maybe actively engaging within the students' union and being a part of these discussions and maybe trying to kind of lead change as well. Something else that could be looked at is food waste. Currently, you know, if you look at a lot of the bins and things like that within UCL, the guidelines are never followed in terms of what should be put where. And it's either students, and I really think it's mostly because students are just unaware, like exactly what are the nuances of what is allowed here, what is not allowed here. And so what you find is that people just make the easiest choice, which is to dump their rubbish in the general waste rather than putting it into the recycling section. And so it kind of shows you that right here, it's an issue of information. And so students don't know what they should be doing. And so something as simple as launching a campaign to increase awareness of the nuances of like waste disposal would be massive towards actually, again, implementing change within people's lives. Within the commercial services specifically, we could look at food waste from the perspective of not wasting an abundance of food. So making sure that foods aren't kept past the expiry date and there's an overstocking of things there. I think that would be important because food waste is such a big factor in where lots of resources are waste for no good reason, and it really isn't like justifiable if you think about it. And so just taking more consideration, taking more care to look into these matters more deeply would also kind of be really, really impactful. Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Osman. Fantastic. And now we're going back to Gigi. And my next question to you is, how will you create more opportunities for students to learn about sustainability?
Great. So I think that the fact that we have a sustainability sabbatical officer is going to be a huge help for me to approach this because I'm the first to admit I don't think I'm the most sustainable person. There's plenty more for me to learn about it. So having that in mind, I think that having input from the sustainability officer is going to be essential for me to figure out what opportunities we can kind of develop together so that UCL students know about sustainability. I think having just at least for me at my old university, there were these initiatives that like just went out to the like mass email list that just went out written by the university I went to, Pitt Sustainable Society, and just encouraging students to attend these events if they've never been before, and kind of making societies that are green, sustainable, seem not so inclusive. Having open events that anyone can attend, regardless of if they've just joined UCL, never been to any event before. Having a open conversation like that through the use of mass email lists, I think will help spread the word that a lot of these societies are trying to spread already. But since they are small and they are kind of, I guess, contained within the group members, it might be a bit hard to share ideas. But I think encouraging societies to reach out to students who may not seem interested is a first step to creating that conversation of sustainability, as well as having like I said, at my old university, they used to have little snippets on syllabi, just about like random things. Like it could be a class that has nothing to do with the environment, but having just snippets like, oh, try your best to take notes on your computer, try to save as much paper as possible, just things like that. That instructors can. It's so easy for an instructor to just type that like. I know that I'm not sure about UCL, but I know a lot of universities have diversity and inclusive statements on their syllabi. So I think including sustainability on there is really easy. And from an educational officer standpoint, something I can push to implement with instructors who I hope to work closely with. Yeah, I mean, I think just spreading the word as much as possible. And, I think I believe that students will, if a student sees their professor, like especially first years, if they see their professor coming in with a reusable mug or something like that, I think that will inspire them to do it themselves. And I think because above all else, we are students, we're here to learn. I think learning from people who we regard as, regard highly, professors, the provost, for first years, probably sabbatical officers. I think leading by example is very important, and UCL at the highest UCL staff at the highest point should focus on being sustainable so they can lead by example.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Gigi. I love the way that you ended there as well, kind of leading by example. It's definitely something that I try to do. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And now we're on to our last question. And you can treat this as a kind of summation of kind of stuff that you've already said, or feel free to kind of say new things. It's completely up to you how you play this. And so the question is, what are your sustainability priorities? And so this time I'm going to go to Osman first.
Thank you, Carol. One of the big things that I'm campaigning on as for the role is this idea of increasing the transparency around UCL's investment policies. This is something that may have been mentioned by other candidates, but I'm the only one who's actually put it in his manifesto. And so this is a really important issue because our tuition fees goes to UCL. And so UCL takes our money and invests it into a whole range of companies. And I think it's important that as students, we're allowed to look at all the records and truly have a say in whether UCL should be investing in certain organizations or companies, and whether that fits UCL's sustainability and socially responsible agendas and policies. And so that's one of I would want to hold UCL to account for that. And I think that's a really important issue that affects all students because our money, again, is going towards these organizations. And so we maybe unwittingly being taking part in a very unsustainable kind of movement in terms of all these companies. And I think, like I said before, I want to just increase the opportunities for students to be sustainable and just make it much more personal to them. And so that's why I would want to include the whole reusable mugs. That's why I'd want to kind of launch a information kind of campaign awareness strategy, because students, again, we're very passionate about these things, but we don't know how to make them actionable. And so breaking it down to students who are very busy, we're trying to balance the degree alongside taking care of the world, right? And so breaking it down, making it simpler so that we all know what we need to do personally to help affect change. And then finally, I would want to, again, strengthen the Student Sustainability Council. I want to kind of pull in as many people across the union on these matters. I don't want it to rely just on one candidate, one role. the sustainability officers is a massive importance in this, but also just general students who happen to be more passionate about these issues, giving them the space and affording them the opportunities to get involved would be massive to actually pushing through these changes and making it more long term. If this is only a top down thing that is pushed by the union, it wouldn't really work. So it's important that we have grassroots support from students. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Osman. And Gigi, same question. What will your sustainability priorities be next year?
Right. I think that, of course, with the new sustainability officer leading us, I think it's really important for UCL to approach sustainability much like it has approached diversity inclusion. I think things like these social issues shouldn't depend on either one officer or just the student union. The student union should lead us, and the board and the staff should lead us. But I think it is going to be a university-wide initiative, much like a lot of the key issues have been, and we've seen it improve over the years. So similar to that, I think that my role would be to direct at least everyone I know and the student union, of course, into a more sustainable future. And I'm not sure about the other education candidates, but I have made it a point in my manifesto to talk about a few sustainability issues. Like I mentioned, the coffee carts in the libraries. I think that reducing plastic waste, even reducing paper waste, is going to be a major improvement to what is now. In addition to making it more comfortable for students and helping them see sustainability as not going out of their way to accomplish it. Things like having your student ID on your phone, I feel is more convenient for a lot of students. And I think we have this kind of societal idea that sustainability is inconvenient. And I think that UCL should really try to get rid of that idea and show that in a lot of ways, sustainability, even though it can be more expensive in some cases, it can also be more convenient and more ethical for a lot of people. In addition to that, I'm really in support of funding the library so it has more copies of textbooks, so students don't have to spend more money to buy a brand new textbook, and two, so that it's just convenient. You can go in the library, get all the information you need, leave. You don't have to carry a heavy textbook around with you. And also supporting the reuse of old textbooks, the reuse of things like book bags. I think the student store has done a job, but I definitely will push for more sustainable items in the store, like reusable, recyclable notebooks, cups, pens, things that maybe at first might be a little bit more expensive, but will last you longer, which in turn is good for everyone. And definitely having conversations with the higher ups, like I said, the provost, the staff, making sure that they are also being as sustainable as the students who are set sort of below them, and making sure that the students have someone they can look up to, and in general make it a up-down kind of system.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Gigi. And lastly, over to Rihanna. So what are your sustainability priorities for next year?
I think one of the issues that we run into right now is that on your own, your actions don't feel like a lot. They certainly don't feel like you're saving the planet by turning out the lights when you're leaving the room. And I think that as the activities and engagement officer, I'd like to work more closely with all of our amazing sustainability and green societies promote them, promote awareness of them, and help them run some like drives and events that are open to everybody, that anybody can join in, and we'll hear a lot more ideas from people that way about how the next couple of years should be run as a sustainability point of view. One of my other priorities, as mentioned earlier, would be to have the reusable, borrowable, and made out of recycled materials sports kits, and then the sustainability review for societies, and having an officer and some resources that would really help them, and just making it easier to be more sustainable. I think another step for that would be in the Freshers Welcome kits, including like a reusable cup, and that again eliminates the financial barriers to making a more sustainable decision. It makes it more convenient to make this choice rather than having to go find one, buy one for yourself. You've already got one, and by doing that, it's a great like welcoming into the UCL sustainability policy. And I think that getting people more aware and more engaged and more invested in making the whole university a more sustainable place will play a big part in our role in the future.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Rihanna. And that's a really hopeful message to finish on. Thank you so much. So thank you. Oh, it's like my word of the day, you know. Thank you, everyone. So thank you to Osman, Rihanna, and Gigi for kind of spending some time with me today to talk about sustainability. It's been fantastic. And it's just been brilliant to hear from kind of so many candidates today. It's just been fantastic. And kind of this was an optional hosting for candidates, but it was so brilliant to see kind of 18 people coming to talk about how they'd make the union and UCL more sustainable. It's just, it makes me feel so good. I love it. So at the start of the show, you heard from the sustainability part-time officer candidates, and with Yahara, Shaban, and then Summer and Zara, who are kind of standing together as a job share. And you're all eligible to vote in the sustainability part-time officer election. Like all of you, everyone watching, as long as you're a current UCL student. But kind of that could be full-time or part-time, any level of study, like everyone can vote for that role. And so kind of to help raise the profile of sustainability at UCL, this is a really important role to kind of vote on, so please do. And also just to say that you can kind of all students can vote on all sabbatical officer positions as well, so it's kind of really great if everyone can. That's brilliant. Please do. We're trying to beat our kind of records of student engagement and kind of voter turnout, and we're getting really close, so we really want kind of loads of people to go out and vote and to kind of exercise their rights. Please do. So this is the first time we've done a sustainability hustings and dedicated a serious amount of time to the topic. And lots of candidates today talked about kind of making conversations and thinking about sustainability as a kind of second nature. And events like this are hopefully a step towards that, about normalizing people talking about sustainability and what they'll do kind of when they get to kind of positions where they can do stuff about it at a kind of large scale. You can rewind this video and watch again, and kind of also make sure that you watch the role-specific question time events that are going out on our Facebook, via email, and everywhere this week. I'm pretty sure the Union Affairs one is happening right now. So on the Union's Facebook page, I'm like involved into, well, all of the Union Affairs candidates and me are kind of involved in 2 broadcasts at the same time. So that's exciting. And so we're just going to show you a video from Kaylee Jackson shortly. So Kaylee is standing for the Union Affairs officer role, but couldn't make this live event. But before we hear from Kaylee, I'll just give a final thank you to everyone who's come along to talk about sustainability today. Thank you for watching, and thank you for voting. You've got until Friday to make your voices heard and cast your vote. And I hope today's session has helped you make a sustainability-focused decision on who should represent you. And a final thanks to Film Society and the ever wonderful Diego for producing this show today. And now over to Kaylee to close the show.
Hi there, Kaylee here, and I'm running in the UCL leadership race to be your Union Affairs officer. So sorry I can't make it to the sustainability hustings today. Unfortunately, I am at work picking up a 5-year-old. But yeah, let's get into it. I'm going to answer the same questions you've all been answering live. How will I prioritise sustainability in my role? A large part of the Union Affairs Officer role is about union outlet, space and policy. I believe sustainability should be implemented into all of these areas, and I will work closely with your chosen sustainability officer when doing so. I will have regular meetings with them and make sure we're on the same page when it comes to sustainability. Before making any decisions, particularly commercial ones regarding outlets, I will consider the environmental impact and have discussions with the sustainability officer to get their outlook on things. I will also continue to research current initiatives that we already have and try to reform them to be more sustainable, with the help again of the sustainability officer, of course. What are my sustainability priorities? While I'll encourage each and every one of you to make sustainable choices and changes to your lifestyle, the most important thing we can do for the planet is to work on sustainability as an institution. I want to promote plant-based eating on campus and at university events. Shout out to my department, Psychology and Language Sciences. A couple years back now, they switched all the food at events to be vegetarian. As a vegan myself, this was greatly appreciated and I was extremely happy about it, and the department really accepted it as well. I'll encourage all departments to do this, not only for sustainability, but also to suit many individuals' dietary requirements. I want to continue to reduce our emissions and work on internal sustainability before paying to offload any carbon. How will I get more students involved in sustainability initiatives? One word, accessibility. There is definitely a class or income struggle when looking at sustainability. Being from a working class family myself, in the past I found it hard to make sustainable choices as often they weren't affordable to me. However, I'd like to take the time right now to highlight that any small changes you can do, be that meatless Mondays, changing your milk options away from dairy, shopping in charity shops, each change, no matter how small, is a positive one. I will get students involved in sustainability by making the events accessible to all. Things like swap shops are a great idea because you can get a groovy new wardrobe and get rid of some of your own worn clothes at the same time for completely free. Throughout my campaign, I've also spoken a lot of this suggestions box I propose in my manifesto. Here you can tell me your ideas and we can collaborate on them and make them into actual projects and policy. Students could also use this for sustainability and share their ideas about how they would get involved with initiatives. And the final question is, what would I change in SU commercial outlets to make them more sustainable? So I've worked over 2 years in Stone Willies now, and kind of in that job I've seen a lot of the behind the scenes of the union, kind of particularly with sustainability. I want to further roll out the use of vegware for takeout and container cups. This is recyclable and compostable, as well as initially being made of plants, so it's much better for the environment. I also want to reduce food waste in outlets by introducing a kind of standardised reduction in the price of food towards closing time. Finally, my biggest priority is to open a zero waste shop on campus. This would allow you to shop sustainably while also on a student budget. Another benefit of this is the money you'd spend would also go back into the union as it does with other outlets. And this money will then go to be spent on things that you need and enjoy. Thank you for the time, I really appreciate it. If anyone wants to discuss anything, sustainability or anything else, election, manifesto, myself, I'd love to chat. My Instagram is @vote_Kaylee, and you can also ask me questions on my student union candidates stall. Thank you.